Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 92nd edition of the Pylon Show, where we have a very special edition because it's the EU-friendly Pylon Show. We're going to have a European host and 4 lovely European guests at a lovely European time zone, 7 p.m. For once in my life, it is not 4 a.m. when I'm on the Pylon Show. So I think that's pretty fantastic. Obviously, just like every week, a lot of things have happened in the world of StarCraft 2. We're going to talk about them. And the main topic of today, which we're going to talk about later, is mostly what's happening right now with the ESL Pro Tour, all the events, the lands that have been cancelled. So we're going to speculate a little bit. We don't have anything official, but we'll just see. Now, before I go ahead and thank all the lovely supporters out there to make this show possible, say hello to the guest. First off, I see another Dutch Protoss who's been putting up astonishing results, defeating some fantastic Protoss players. Harstem, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, Kev. I'm glad to be awake. I think this is my first time on the Pylon Show. I think I've denied a couple of times on the basis that it was indeed at 4 a.m. usually, but I'm happy I'm here.
And we are happy to have you. Next up, I see a lovely Frenchman that obviously does an insane amount of StarCraft, but he does a bit of everything. Obviously works full-time for O Gaming, but on top of that also has been streaming a lot lately. Funka, how is life, my friend?
Life's pretty good, Roddy. Really happy to be here and honestly enjoying myself quite a bit during the lockdown. I mean, I just moved to a new place. I've got a lot of room around me. That's, the best I could have hoped for. So I'm happy.
Alrighty. I see a Zerg Maniac in the left bottom side of my screen. Someone who also streams a lot. Lambo, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm glad to be here. Also, I'm super happy that we finally have a complete EU Pylon show, because I also quite often, when Artosis asks me, I'm like, I'm not staying up that late. There's no way. So happy to be here.
And last but not least, my good friend Benjamin Baker. Ben, first of all, before you even tell me how you're doing, did you quit StarCraft, Ben? Like, are you taking a break?
Am I taking a break, Kevin? No, I am not taking a break. Like I have one day where it's like, this actually happened. I streamed in the morning for like 4 hours of StarCraft 2. I then come back and do another stream, and it's like, oh my god, I haven't seen you do StarCraft lately. Like, did you quit the game? And it's like, no, I freaking did it this morning, man. Like, Jesus Christ. I even had a guy on Instagram yesterday. He wrote a comment. He's like, man, I haven't seen you around lately. Waiting for you to come back online. I'm like, freaking hell, mate! I streamed like 300 hours over the past 2 months. Like, bloody hell! But yeah, no, I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
Yeah, life in Sweden is going well. Nothing to complain about.
Not at all, no.
All right, well, Ben, it's awesome to have you. Now, guys, of course, we're going to talk about this week in StarCraft, because just like every week, a lot of things happened, but not before we give a massive shout out to the lovely individuals that make this happen. I believe there are currently over 410 subscribers to the Patreon, so that's super awesome. I am not going to read out 410 names, because then this is going to be a really long episode, but I do want to give a massive shout out to the supporters who support with over $100. We have Manard, Astrofin, Field of Sins, Jerry Wang, Shane, and Videk. Guys, thank you so much. You make Artosis and Matt very happy, and obviously we all thank you very much for the support. Now, if you enjoy the Pylon Show, you can obviously support them on Patreon. There's many different tiers. It doesn't have to be $100. If you have them, spare them. You can give them away, but it doesn't have to be. There are many different perks you get as well. Obviously, the link is posted in the chat. And of course, everybody that is $2 or above will still get VOD and MP3 sent out as soon as they are done. And there are goals. I mean, one goal is apparently already met, and that is to get a pro player and a translator on the Pylon Show. So that is going to happen once Artosis is back. And then there is another goal, which I don't think the world is ready for. We've all been saving. We've all been putting money aside for a long time. But I believe there is a chance that Nick Tasteless plot will actually make it onto the Pylon Show eventually. So yeah, if you can support the Pylon Show, this is the time to do it, guys, because we may very well be blessed with a visit from Tasteless. Last but not least, there's obviously always a word of the day. We have a Matcherino code, and the code today is barbecue, because apparently this is National Barbecue Month. Any of you guys get a barbecue in yet, guys?
Can't say I have, Kevin, but with the sunny weather and how good it's been recently, I'm looking forward to barbecuing every day.
Lambo seems like a guy who would enjoy barbecue.
I mean, I would, but it's barbecue is kind of where you bring all your friends together usually, which is kind of hard at these times. But yeah, I think a cheeky barbecue even with the family, I think sounds nice.
I mean, the weather is definitely getting better, so that's obviously
Oh,
an
yeah.
easy way to do it. Matcherino link will be posted in the chat as well. So once again, barbecue, that is a free way to support the Pylon Show, and we truly appreciate it. I think it's time to get going with this week in StarCraft, because like I said, a lot of things have happened. I think we always have a lot of online action, but I don't know if you guys agree or not. It feels like right now there is more online StarCraft than ever before.
It's actually super hard to catch everything.
Mhm.
And I mean, the fact that we've had new things coming into, for example, this Red Bull weekly event, which
Yep.
is super damn cool, actually, like super duper cool. And I'm hearing about like the rise of Clem all of a sudden. But yeah, you can't keep track of everything. TSL qualifiers, GSL as well. Like I'm very used to logging into Team Liquid and just seeing like the Twitch section, but now we've got GSL over on YouTube, and it's actually doing surprisingly well, I think. Like
Mhm.
the viewership hasn't really changed at all, which when I've thought about any games going over to YouTube, I've always thought, oh, that's the demise, that's dead. But I'm really impressed with the fact that StarCraft is like one of the games that has absolutely kept its viewership. And I mean, that might be just the fact that StarCraft 2's been around for as long as it has and has a really, really stable base. But yeah, there's so much StarCraft going on right now.
Actually, I like what you said there, because I kind of expected the same. Once you switch over to YouTube, it's like, okay, there will always be diehards who will find it. But there's a lot of people who normally just browse the StarCraft section in Twitch, right? So I definitely expected it to take a little bit of a hit. But this kind of reminds me of a summit we had a long time ago with Blizzard, where they basically said that every single time Blizzard releases a new game, they can see movement from every player base going towards that new game, right? Like WoW will drop some subscribers, Diablo, people will play less, Harstem will play less. But StarCraft, no matter what's being released, it's always kind of that steady line. It's just like StarCraft fans love StarCraft, and apparently no matter where you host it, people will find it. Now, of course, ESL is one of the big ones that's going on. The ESL Open Cups always happen, and we'll talk about those. TSL qualifiers have been, well, there's been a lot of talk about them, and obviously we'll be talking about them as well. But they have provided us with an insane amount of content. I mean, we had European server qualifiers, Korean, American. Players were always welcome, and that caused a little bit of drama, but we'll talk about that later. I believe that Cobra also has a beautiful graphic for us where you can basically see what's coming up in the upcoming weeks when it comes to a lot of the Pro Tour events that are happening online. Pretty cool that there is an Australian one as well. We'll talk about that soon. But the TLDR is you don't have to be bored in the upcoming weeks because a lot of StarCraft is coming your way. So let's actually start off with going over some of the results first. Maybe, I don't know, who's the most passionate over here? Whew, this is a tough one. But Harstem, did
That's
you
a rough
see
one.
Probe take down the Australian Open trio over Cedar in the grand final?
Yeah, what a final it was. A PvP for the ages, my friend. I mean, who would have expected that after a game one where Probe... No, I didn't watch it.
I mean, in our defense, it is kind of a rough time zone for us. But I do think it's
It is.
really cool. The Australian scene is actually super fun. I mean, I had a super random invite earlier this year to go to Australia, and it was honestly so much fun to meet all those guys. They're all really cool, and hopefully, like this weekly cup will motivate some of them because, yeah, Probe winning in the final against Cedar. That's kind of what we would have predicted 6 or 7 editions ago as well. So it would be fun if there is going to be a few upsets. Apparently, it's brought to you by Dare Iced Coffee, $100 every week until August 12. So a few more editions coming up, and it will be casted by the Cranky Ducklings. So that's kind of cool. And then, of course, TSL, we already mentioned it. I have 2 players in the call that qualified. Kev, you did it in the first edition of the American qualifier, correct?
Second edition of the American qualifier.
All
So
right.
technically the 4th qualifier, because calling them NA and Europe qualifiers is a bit old. They were kind of global qualifiers, all of them. But yeah, so I just qualified in the 4th qualifier at a terrible time, but I made it. I'm very happy.
When all the qualifiers were announced, and obviously a couple of players were invited as well, how confident were you that you were going to qualify? Because obviously it's tough. You know that pretty much everyone that's good is going to try at least because it's a very prestigious online event. So did you feel like you were going to qualify, or was it kind of like, whew, that's a huge relief?
Well, that was a huge relief. Usually I already struggle getting into Challenger, like for the past few years. And that's 16 spots just for Europe. I think now we had 12, and then there were 2 invites already, so it was 14, and that includes some of the American players, some of the people playing from Korea. I was like, I did some quick math in my head. It's been some time since elementary school, but I was like, this isn't gonna work out, Kev.
But it did work out.
It did. So, and even in the 4th qualifier, like even in Challenger, I usually qualify in the final one, but this time around, I was like, man, actually went pretty well. I was really happy. Like, actually felt good.
Lambo, you made it as well. You obviously had a very interesting scenario where there were 2 qualifiers in the same day, an American one and a European one. And in both of them, the final was you against Special. And obviously that caused a little bit of drama because it didn't matter, right? If you would win, then he would be qualified out of the second one. And if you'd lose, you'd be qualified out of the second one. But yeah, talk to us about your experience in this qualifier.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm obviously very happy that I qualified. I think it's a little bit weird that they scheduled them both on the same day, because then this kind of stuff can happen. And I mean, that was basically the worst case scenario as well for the tournament organizer, because literally 2 people get into the same winners final, which means basically less games. Yeah, I also was a little bit upset at first when Special came to Europe and the admins told us for the first time that we actually have to play on the NA server against people that play from Asia, which I was hoping to at least have, we only have 2 qualifiers on Europe instead of the 3 on NA. So I figured those are not just for time zones, because the time zone from Europe is kind of better for everyone, since it's a little bit better for the guys from Asia as well. So I figured it would be server qualifiers, right? And yeah, I was a little bit upset about that. Overall, obviously happy to qualify. It went pretty smooth for me in both the qualifiers where I ended up qualifying. So,
I mean, I know you as a confident individual, so I guess you felt all along like you were going to make it, or at least a little nervous.
Yeah, I'm a little bit nervous. I think there's a lot of players like that didn't qualify, where you can lose to them if you're not like the top player. Like I can lose, for example, against a Denver who didn't make it. I think like those kind of players. I think if you just also have a bad week, because all those qualifiers were like next to each other, and even if I'm just forced to play on an A, I really play really poorly with ping. So I try hard a lot in the European one.
Yeah, I believe it. Ben, I don't know if you've taken. I know it's hard to follow because it was an insane amount of StarCraft. But is there anyone that made it that you're like, damn, I'm impressed that he made it, or I really didn't expect him?
Actually, I'm well behind the Dong Ragu hype. Like, I remember he kind of made as an announcement that he was playing again, like quite some maybe 2 years ago. But just recently, the fact that he's actually been taking some games, and some really good games, off like very, very big like innovations and stuff, I'm very impressed, because he was always a guy that back then I always thought mechanically he was beautiful. I mean, Vanya is a massive surprise, right? Like, but when I say that he beat Denver to get in, I don't think that's as surprising, even though I do think Denver's very good. But yeah, for me, those are the 2 big surprises for sure.
Funka, anything that stands out for you when you think back of all these qualifiers? You casted quite a bit of it, right?
Most of them. Well, we didn't do the American ones because obviously time zone pretty terrible for us. But the European ones and the Korean ones we did. Obviously the server issues and the format in general felt a little bit quite complicated and everything. So that was a little bit frustrating for us, and I believe for the players it might have been the same, because of all the changes and stuff. So I guess those qualifiers are really interesting in the fact that we will have those kind of issues in the future because of all the events and stuff like that. Like, we need to figure out how to make it good for everybody, for the broadcasters, for the players, for everything. So I guess it's a good practice run in a way, even though TSL is already pretty big. And as Lambo said, I mean, there's a lot of players that were obviously super scared of going into those qualifiers, because that's mostly what you have to play in the following weeks. Like, if you mess that up, then suddenly you don't have to play that many tournaments beside like the smaller online ones. As far as the players go, yeah, obviously Dongregu, Vanya, pretty interesting that they got in. I'm kind of sad for Denver, and obviously for the American region, I mean, Neeb is not there. Neeb didn't make it, and that's a pretty huge, I guess, upset not seeing him there. So I guess that's mostly what I think about it as I look at it. Like, those 2 guys, Dongregu, Vanya, really nice, and then not having Denver and not having Neeb kind of sucks, I guess.
And I think last but not least, earlier this morning, because just today all the qualifiers were finally wrapped up. Time made it, guys, and I know all 4 of you guys. I think everybody here loves watching Time. When this kid is practicing, he's incredibly fun to follow, and it's really cool to have a Chinese representative in TSL as well. The main tournament starts May 16th, so yeah, make sure to put that in your agenda and get hyped. Wardy will be casting, Zombie Grub, and myself. And Day 9 will be making some very special guest appearances as well. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I think everyone is super stoked. It's been like 8 years, I think, since the last TSL. So yeah, May 16th, it starts. It's going to be super awesome.
Actually, before you get on to the next thing, was it also Future doing the miracle run for this qualifier? There's been so many qualifiers, but
no,
Future,
he qualified for TSL. Yes.
Yeah, Future's run, like, because he went to the lower bracket straight away, and then he beat everybody, and then had to beat Neeb to make it. So the fact that we have not only Neeb in America, that's obviously good. I know he's had a bit of a rough trot the last few weeks. You know, he lost to a few Dutch Protosses, if I remember correctly, that were a little bit surprising. But no, it's really good to see Future doing well, because that's 2 really young Terrans that are both rising. And I mean, it's very easy to be overshadowed by Clem, but making it into TSL, if you're Future, that's definitely no small.
No, I'm with you. I was really surprised as well to see Harstem beat Neeb, but I thought it was cool, man. Like, you know, those are the upsets that we need. All right, guys. Now, obviously, we're all excited to see Future play, and I can't wait to see the main event actually start. We've had GSL this week as well. Every Wednesday, every Saturday, GSL has been happening. And there was a lot of talk, guys. There was a lot of talk, especially about that opening series. Maybe a bit about the closing as well. Lambo, I'm sure you've seen Dark versus Stasia. Did you think it was as good as everybody else said it was?
Yeah, I think it was a really good series with like the underdog Tasia really giving Dark a good fight, where he actually got ahead in I think all 3 games, and I think all of the games were super winnable for him. I mean, I actually watched it together with Harstem on Harstem's channel, so we were cheering a little bit for Tasia. I obviously was cheering for Terran, so the baneling stone got nerfed, and Harstem was cheering for his teammate. But yeah, I think honestly the series was really good. I think the ending of Game 3 was a little bit because he stayed in the game for very long. But other than that, it was super fun to watch.
Were you guys surprised, Harstem, maybe that Deer managed to make it out of this group, or did you have a feeling about it? Because he did have a good showing in Katowice and stuff as well.
I think Deer is probably one of the top 3 tosses at the moment. Like with Trap and Zest, I'd say Deer is pretty high up there. So I wasn't too surprised, but I feel like Deer always looks a bit, I don't know, like he never really wows me in a way that sometimes Stats does. If he's absolutely on point, you know, it's like, that's cool, but, you know, it's like, it's not brilliant. So yeah, he could have won, he could have lost. I think I predicted him to go 3rd in this group, but yeah, he got out.
Funka, was there anything that really stood out for you in Group A?
No, to be honest, GSL hasn't been like my main focus these days, because for the first time in a couple years now, that's the first time that we can't really broadcast this on OGaming because of the YouTube change. So usually I just, you know, take a look at the VODs, but after a while, if I look at the players that qualified, then, I mean, I'm always riding the Tasia hype train, right? Like, he's one of my all-time favorite players to watch. So I would have loved him to, I would have loved for him to qualify to the round of 8. But then, as you guys said, like, I mean, Doc is just a beast every time. Scarlett's always a wild card in my opinion, so she could have qualified, I guess, but still a really tough one. And even though, like you said, like, Deer is not brilliant, but Deer is like top 8, top 4 material, like pretty much every single GSL. So him qualifying right there, I guess, makes a little bit of sense. Like, if you look at the results throughout, I guess Dark and Deer are the 2 most obvious to qualify. So can't really speak about the games because I haven't seen them yet, but the players don't surprise me.
Ben, any final thoughts quickly about Group A?
I am never on the Deer hype train, mainly because I always hear from the European guys like Harstem, because he's quite friendly. Like, he shares replays and stuff and strats and talks. So I know these guys are all very fond of him. But whenever I start believing, he always then lets me down really, really tragically and just kind of falls apart in a very important match. And for me, like, the most impressive Deer was when he was like dominating Korea. Like, I think he won GSL and like went to like Blizz. It was around that period of time, but you guys remember, right? Like, he was a freaking beast. And then I remember, like, he lost to Jaedong. I think it was Jaedong in a series that he was the overwhelming favorite, and ever since then, I haven't felt the same about Deal. But Tasia played super damn well. Like his micro in fights, he would always bait Dark to fight off creep with like a very small portion of his army, like just very good positioning and stuff. And Scarlet, she was obviously quite fortunate to be there in the first place with those games against Rogue. And I mean, her play seemingly is getting more and more cheeky. And I mean,
It's
she's
no
always
regret
been
environment, man. No
I mean,
regret
she's
is
always-
a bad influence.
yeah, I mean, she's always been a cheeky player, but I do feel that she's also a player that has very good fundamentals. Like she was one of the best creep spreaders before creep spreading became a real thing.
Mhm.
And I almost want to see her go back to the basics a little bit, as opposed to just kind of trying to rely on just the cheap, because having the full package is always way more scary.
Cool. Of course, GSL will continue Saturday morning for the Europeans. I mean, this is the European Pilot Show, so we're using European time zones now. Group B should be really sick. I mean, TY, Solar, Stats, and Cure. We could talk about that for a very long time, but we have 20 other tournaments to go through. So, guys, make sure to watch the GSL. Once again, broadcasted on Africa and YouTube right now. But still very easy to follow. Now, my producer really has to help me out because I still don't understand this, because we are going through all these slides. And then suddenly I'm looking at Parting and Juanito, and I don't know what this means. Parting basically says, I can't feel any humbleness from him. And then Juanito kind of sits there like, I don't know, someone that I would see on Netflix in a chair, in one of these Spanish-speaking shows. And he's like, I don't have any. That's it.
It's a cover
This week in
slide
StarCraft.
basically saying, hey, now you're starting this week in StarCraft versus reviewing stuff
Cool. All
for
right.
a
So,
specific week. Hope
cool.
that helps.
It's just memes. That's what it is, guys.
Yeah, basically a way for Alessandro to insert memes.
Okay.
We're just looking at memes now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay,
It's good.
cool.
I mean, he
I'm
looks
like, all
brilliant
right.
in his chair. Like, look at
Yeah,
this
no,
guy.
his posture is great. It's a great picture. I love it. Anyway, guys, let's go over some of the cups that have taken place last week. Of course, ESL Cup Korea took place. It's the 17th edition already. Damn, it goes so fast. Cure managed to defeat Australia 3-1 in the finals, but seeing Australia making it to the finals, I personally think is already very cool. Funka, did you cast any of those games? Did you watch any of those?
ESL Cup Korea. No, I can't really say anything. The only thing that I would like to mention is the trend of Terran players winning everywhere, guys. I mean, Terran might be broken at the moment. I mean, ESL Open Cup in Europe is being like quite seized by Terran players. Same goes with the Red Bull Cup that you mentioned, the Zelnaga's finest. And here, even in Korea, Cure is winning. So that makes me happy to the core, Really,
And
really
all
happy.
of that while feeling so economically behind. I find that the most impressive thing,
Interesting.
There is a lot of frustration. They feel it, whether it's true or not. They just feel it. And they still manage to pull through. Demuslem, do you have an explanation for any of this?
I do. As Terrans, we try hard all the time, but we're not smart about it. Like the Zergs, they're actually smart about balance patches and stuff. They hear that something's coming up, and it's like, oh no, boys, we're going to get nerfed. They truly are a freaking hive mind. They're like, okay, let's all start playing a little bit worse. Coming up for all these qualifiers for $100 here, there, and everywhere. Let's wait until freaking BlizzCon and Katowice to actually perform where the money matters. That's what I think. But no. I mean, these are online cups. When I look at a lot of those names, I do think Cure is the best in that qualifier.
Mhm.
I'm a little bit surprised that there aren't more crazy names, because I know like a lot of the Koreans get involved in a lot of the Oli Moly League and stuff like that. So I'm a little bit surprised there aren't more names there.
Yeah, Harstem or Lambo, do you guys have any insight for us? Why don't we see more of the top Koreans? Like, obviously, I don't expect the top 10 to participate every single Sunday, but I feel like you look at a bracket like this and you're like, all right, Bonnie is good, but he's not even like one of the first 5 players you think of when you think of stars. Do you guys have any idea why we never see like the big guns like a Maru or a Dark playing these?
I think because for them already the big tournaments are going on. They already have GSL to focus on. It makes very little sense, I think, to show everything you have in the ESL Cups if you're still preparing for GSL. I think once the round of 16 is over, we're going to see a lot of the people that dropped out there play the EPT Cups. Or it seems logical to me. But right now, there's so many more points to be won in the GSL than in the EPT Cups that I think it makes more sense for them to play those. And I mean, we don't see Settle here either, so I don't think we're going to be seeing a Maru or a Dark play them very much. They don't strike me as the types for online stuff in general too much.
Yeah, but I guess like we don't see Cyril. That's true. He doesn't really participate in them, but we see pretty much everyone else, right? We see Lambo, you, Gabe, Clem, Raynors playing them as well. Showtime. So I feel like if you look at the top 10 players of the European region, you could say that 8 or 9 of them are participating most of the time. And in Korea, it's like 1, sometimes even 0 out of the top 10. I find that a bit surprising. What about you, Lambo?
Like when I talked to Solar about this, he said most of the top Koreans just think it won't matter because the Katowice now has a lot of slots for Korea and for the foreigners both, and he just thinks that they just think that most of these points don't matter. Now I think we're already seeing a trend with the foreigners that I think it will actually matter for quite a few of these players because there's a lot of top Koreans, and I think there's still going to be an interesting fight later on. Like towards the end, where you're like, oh man, maybe I should have played these EPT Cups. This would have been 3 points. Like if you look at the participation list from the Koreans, like a Zest or a TY, maybe these guys will end up eighth or ninth or whatever.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, I think they're a little bit too confident, and maybe they don't value the points as much as we do. Yeah.
I'm with you. Obviously, that was number 17. Once again, awesome job by Cure for winning it, and great job to Australia for making it to the finals. Of course, these happen in every single region. We have the European edition as well. And the big Gabe Weekly once again lived up to his name as Hero Marine was able to win. I think that's his 6th or his 7th or something. I don't know how many he's won at this point. 7 or 8, I guess, even. After taking out 7?
I think 7, but I could be.
I know he won
mistaken.
3 once, and then he went on another winning streak, and then there was a break, and then he won 2. So I think this is 8 maybe. But anyway, we can look that up. TLDR is that Big Gabe once again was victorious. He defeated Gong Fu Banda 3-0 in the finals, and obviously taking Clem out in the semis. I think that was the big one. Lambo, was there anything that really stood out for you this week when it comes to the European Weekly?
I mean, Gong Fu got to the finals, which meant that he actually got his first EPT points, which is actually really big for seeding because he wasn't in Katowice, and he's actually much better than some other players that have EPT points. So in all these TSL qualifiers, he would get a random seed. Like he would have the same seed as Rotti, for example. But
why are you burning me over here? Like
of all the people,
you could have mentioned anyone, and now it's like Rotti.
Rotti,
wow.
Imagine.
For a famous example, No, but I think this is it's very important for him, even though he doesn't get any money. Like these 5 EPT points actually matter a lot if you have 0, especially.
So I was wondering, because did you know Gong Fu Banda personally, Lambo, or just online, I guess?
Well, we met a couple of times, yeah.
Yeah, but it's what's the situation with him? Like, is he playing full time at the moment? Is it because of the lockdown that we see him a little bit more? Like, I can't really tell where he is right now on the spectrum.
I think he's working full time. I'm not sure what happens right now with the lockdown. Maybe Harstem knows.
Oh, I don't know what's happening right now with the lockdown. I think he works in IT support.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he does that full time, and then he says, "I like to come home at night and then slay some nerds online." All these newbie full-time players, and here I am full-time working. I can still win. That gives him a lot of joy, I think, and he's an interesting individual.
Yeah. Now, as far as I know, he's working as well, because I like to tune into his stream sometimes, and he always starts super late, right? He starts streaming at like 10 p.m. or something. Then he puts on some weird German underground techno, and he's like, yeah. He's like ready to play some games. So pretty sure he's working, but he's doing great. Other than that, I mean, Harstem had a good run. Utomo obviously strong as always. I feel like Skillers has been on a little bit of a roll lately as well. Maybe not so much in this one, but overall, I think that young Russian Protoss has really found his stride again. I think he was in a little bit of a dip over the last 2 months, and I think now he's returning back to his previous form where he was taking names out and stuff.
Yeah, he had a super dip. Like, I mean, players do go up and down. Like, that obviously happens, but he got very emotional on Twitter.
Yeah,
and then his ladder account also went down to like 6.1k, and it was like, wow, this is a serious freaking dip. But no, it's I always cheer Skillus on a little bit. He's just such a likable young lad, and yeah, I'm very impressed with Gabe's consistency, and I think consistency has always been Gabe's strength. Like, he's never as flashy as a lot of other players can be, but he's always extremely solid. Like, whenever I've seen him, if I imagined him to be, a Tony Hawk's character or something, he's always like 9.5 out of 10 across the board on absolutely everything. He's just very good and all round. And yeah, it's definitely nice to see him as a full-time streamer doing well.
It's been a fun little rivalry between Hero Marine and Clem as well, right? Because Clem is obviously winning almost everything that he participates in. And it feels like at this point, Clem is almost the favorite against everyone he plays, if you don't include the Sarah and Reina when it comes to foreign StarCraft. But then there is still Gabe. And obviously Clem has taken down Gabe a couple times. But I feel like that's a pretty fun little rivalry that's establishing between those two. I see you nodding, Funka. You agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, obviously, you know us guys at Gaming, like we like to follow the Frenchies. The better they do, the better it is for us, and we get hyped, and we can throw objectivity out of the window. That's amazing for us. We love it. So obviously, following Clem these days, and obviously Denver is doing pretty well as well, is really great. And what's happening with Clem is that it feels like the only and that sounds like once again Terran might be broken, because the only race that can beat Clem these days feels like it's Terran, right? Like he will occasionally drop a series to Uthermal, and obviously big game like that. Those are the two players that I see beating Clem quite regularly. And on the other side, like I always feel like he's gonna have the upper end, whether it is in TVP or TVZ. So it's just like it's really good for following Clem these days. His TVZ is amazing. Like I love watching that. But then you've got a little bit of that frustration that goes into it, because when he plays TVT, he gets, I don't know, like Uthermal is gonna throw something weird at him, and then he's not gonna know how to react to it. And then when it comes to playing against Gabe, I feel like Big Gabe just has like better understanding of the matchup in general, better army positioning, and better presence on the map. Like obviously Clem is going to do some crazy flashy stuff and kill 17 SCVs with 2 Marines and a Widow Mine, but when it comes to moving your army around and pressuring like important zones, like it's important in TVT, it will get outplayed occasionally. So yeah, there's definitely a big rivalry between those two, and it's amazing to see it like every single week.
Of course, was casted by Chicken Man, Wardy, Takeo Gaming, Indy, Steadfast, KOX, Mint Crystal, Maddox, and Beller, and I'm sure a few other players out there, because everyone loves casting the weeklies. Now, of course, last but not least, we had the American Weekly as well, with, in my opinion, a pretty surprising victor. Bly, after making it to countless of finals, was finally able to win one of those ESL Pro Tour weekly opens. Number 17 of the Americas, he was able to reverse sweep special in the finals. Now, when I saw this run by Bly, taking out Uterm on the quarters, taking out Drogo in the semis, and then winning the finals against Special as well, I was genuinely surprised. Lambo, how did you react to Bly winning this one?
I mean, I woke up and I saw this, and I was also very surprised, just like you said. I think Bly tends to do very well against Drogo, but usually he does not do too well against the top Terrans. So I was very surprised to see him take out both Uthermal and Special. And I mean, I didn't watch the game, so I don't know. I assume there's a lot of hatcheries on the Terran side that happened there, but I mean, great result nonetheless.
Yep. Harstem, you already said you heard something about a couple of hatcheries being proxied there.
Yeah, I asked Drogo, and he said one time he did some weird early pull into a Queen March, and then a proxy hatch very close by. So that's how Drogo lost. And I think Special mentioned that he lost to a proxy hatch as well, at least once. Like, I didn't know how many times, but I mean, Bly has been playing against him is literally just find the hatchery, and it's never in his natural. That's the one place you don't actually have to lose.
I totally agree with Lambo. Like, obviously, I do think as general when I see Drogo against Bly, I'd be like, well, I think Drogo wins that. But if Bly wins that, that's not a massive shocker to me because of the matchup. I think Bly traditionally in ZVP has, like, he plays so different, so unique, and I think the Zerg nonsense is just by default a bit better against Protoss than it is against Terran. So to see him beat Utermo and Special, I was generally like, wow, like what has Bly been eating, man? Like, I don't know, I did not expect it at all.
It feels like
amazing. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's amazing that Bly, because he's not one of the younger players either. Like I don't know how old he is. I think he's like maybe 31-ish, 32. But he's been doing the same shit for like the past 10 years, And in these $100 tournaments, he just freaking comes alive and plays as if his life depends on it. And, you know, you look at this bracket and it's like 2-1 Uthermal, 2-1 Drogo, 3-2 Special in the final.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how we still all fucking fall for it. Because they say StarCraft 2 players are smart, but we are getting fucking bamboozled for 10 years in a row by bloody Bly. And, like, there have been players that have been so freaking consistent against Bly. For example, do you remember Marine Lord? When he used to shit talk Bly so hard, and they had like
a best of 39 or something like
31.
that.
28-3.
Yeah, like 31
Posted that.
games.
That was amazing. That was amazing.
Yeah, and
No, that was
Marine Lord
brutal,
games at
actually.
8-3. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, that
I
was
remember that. I just got sad watching that at one point because Marine Lord was mana-muling like 3 minutes into the games and stuff. And I was like, no, this is too much, man. I can't watch it.
Bly didn't give a damn. He wanted to play. He was like,
Yeah,
let's
I
go,
know.
let's go, let's play some more games. What the hell, man? You're getting demolished. And he kept on playing, kept on trying his thing. But I mean, that says something about Bly's persistence, you know?
Yeah.
Like, the fact that he's been playing this way for, as you said, 10 years, and I checked it out, he's 31. So, yeah, he's like a really old school player in StarCraft 2. And yeah, he had a period of time, early Legacy of the Void, if I remember correctly, when he tried to play like late game oriented and he microed his Vipers, and we were like, oh my god, Bly can actually do that. That's pretty crazy. But then he went back to his old shenanigans, and he keeps on doing this, and he keeps on getting results with this. Like, I expect him to be maybe quarterfinals or round of 8, round of 16 something of every single tournament. But him making it past like quarters, semi, even getting to the finals and getting those wins. Like, it's just like, it's mesmerizing. Like, I can't even understand how he does that, but he does. Like, he finds new like adaptations and stuff like that. People mentioned in the chat that he proxied hatch the third base on the high yield gas, and that's something he's been doing quite a lot these days. And even the stronger Terrans that I used to believe couldn't lose to him will get caught by those kind of strategy, because he does have like a new flavor of his Google proxy hatch, because now he's got a big gas that he can use, and he makes a shit ton of Ravagers, and you're like, oh my god, he's actually gonna kill me. So props to him. Like, him winning this cup and beating those players is just great for him. Like, the guy is a
few
legend.
weeks ago, Bly actually eliminated me out of one of the American weeklies, and I was a bit tilted just because I knew what was coming, but I was like, I can't defend it, and I hate it so much. And he took the rich gas against me as well, and I was kind of tilted. I was like, all right, guys, that's it for me. I'm leaving. And then Bly comes in the chat. He's like, oh, sorry, Roddy. I just thought I would do some fun strategies for the viewers, and I was like, you do this against everyone, okay? Not just against me. And there is nothing fun about this. This is the most annoying thing in the world to lose against. But yeah, props to Bly for winning one finally after getting into the finals, or getting to the finals quite a few times already. Really well done. It was casted by Maynard, Golden Pig, Steadfast, and Rockets. Those guys were all going strong. Next up, another tournament that's always casted by Maynard. We had Ollie Malik. We had a pretty close final, actually. A little bit of a dream storyline. It was like 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, 2-2, 2-3, 3-3, 4-3 victory in the end for Innovation. Funka, I see you nodding your head. Is there something you want to talk about?
Well, just in general, Olimo League has been one of the tournaments, the online tournaments that we've casted for a long time, not just pre-lockdown, I mean, on O Gaming. These days, Koka is doing all of them. I just wanted to mention that this guy, I know sometimes you want to, make fun of Koka. So he was casting this thing, right? Like solo casting on O Gaming, doing his thing, because he loves the Korean scene. Goes into the finals and he thinks it's a normal Olimo League. So he actually turned down the stream at 3-2 because he thought it was a best of 5. So he didn't even cast the 3 last games. That moron. Like, the freaking chat's like, no, don't turn off, like it's not over. And the guy just goes in, like, in, I don't know, like works out or whatever, just didn't cast the last game. So I just felt I needed to mention that. Like, he was like, okay, Innovation 1, 3, and 2, that's great, see you guys. And then no, it's actually a best of 7 games. What a moron.
Oh, I love that. I love it.
Two belch.
Thank you for sharing that. Lambo, did you catch the games? Is there anything you want to talk about quickly?
No, absolutely not. I didn't watch them.
Okay. Harstem, Kev, you guys all good with Ollie Malik?
Yeah. I subscribe to their Patreon. I watch the replays every single week and get depressed seeing Trap lose for the 7th time against a different Zerg. It's not a good life watching the Ollie Malik replays usually. It's a bit sad.
Of course, big shout out to Ollie Malik for making this happen, and of course for Maynard for always bringing awesome coverage, which is broadcasted on his channel as well. Of course, Crank is always doing this in Korean too. Next up, we had the OSC King of the Hill Weekly. Or is that a picture of Vladimir Popescu? I believe it is. That is good old Marsmon there. As we take a look, this is obviously a King of the Hill tournament, which means if you win, you play another game. If you lose one series, you are done. I see that Gerald had a good run before losing 2B. And then we see Marsmon being actually... Wow! Okay, what a run. What a run by Vladimir Popescu. Took out Blue. How did Blue... Okay, what are these results that I'm seeing over here? I know we're playing best of ones, guys. But first off, I see that B beats Gerald. I'm like, okay, a bit surprising. Then Papi beats B. I'm like, that's a bit surprising too. I guess there is map choices. Then Blue beats Special, Blue. Then Marsmon beats Blue. And then Marsmon also beats Denver. What happened in this King of the Hill, guys? Harstem, did you catch any of it?
No, I didn't, but I think I'm going to have to rewatch the VOD after seeing Blue beat Special. My boy Marsman taking down Denver real fast is actually good results. I love it.
Absolutely. So that's really fun. It was streamed by Creighton Olsen and Belair. It happens on Wednesdays. Every map win was worth $7.50. And the king is awarded $15 as well. The king in the end was Mana, because Mana showed up, won a best of one PvP, and got crowned the king after beating Marsmon. Mana had a good week in StarCraft, guys. Moving on. We had the Sea Duckling Open. It's brought to you by the Cranky Ducklings. This was number 77 already. And apparently, Aeon Leader was able to win it 3-0 in the finals. This is it's a bronze to diamond. I was like, who are these players? Are we in Brood War already? Like, I don't know any of them. Okay, it's a bronze to diamond tournament. Open on all servers. This is obviously really fun. They have a challenge link as well. You can support the tournament on Patreon and Discord at /thecrankyducklings. Been doing a lot of stuff lately. You guys ever catch any of the Cranky Ducklings? Is there something that they broadcast that you guys love? Ben, I see you look very confused.
I was just trying to look at the players, and I was like, man, even Terran winning in bronze to diamond. But like,
Yeah.
I was like, man, that's the
Broken.
one thing I've always said, that Zerg is easier than Terran, or Protoss is easier than Terran. No, they frickin' win the lower leagues too. No, I haven't tuned in, honestly, but it's kind of cool to see stuff and seeing so many countries partake as well.
Yeah,
Bronze
grassroots
to diamond,
tournaments.
Funka, is this something that you would be interested in, or?
I'm just a tiny bit higher than that. Like
I
there's one until Masters 2 that I'm really interested in, so I might play in this one. But Bruce and Diamonds, that's not for me.
All right, Mr. Bitter though, Mr. Bitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can get him into this. I feel like Mr. Bitter is allowed to cast if he wins one of the Cranky Ducklings Open. Bronze to diamond. If Mr. Bitter wins one of those, he can hang out with us and he can cast one. Next up, we had the Grand Platypus Open, where we had Gogo Joey take out Mia Maika 3-0 in the final. Obviously, Southern or Southeast Asian tournament here. Oh, Joey, guys, 3-0ing Mia Maika. Are we surprised by that? Harstem, I see you look.
I'm not too sure if I'm surprised by that or not, honestly. I don't know too much about the players.
Well, Mio Maika is the Maru Slayer.
Yeah, I know that, but like I don't know the rest of his skill. I know he all-ins a lot. Okay, I'm not too familiar with these guys.
I don't know, man. All you have to do is 2-0 Maru on land. That's something that you can take with you for the rest of your life.
Nice.
I would introduce myself like that in the Pylon show as well. Like, my name is Mia Maika and I 2-0'd Maru on land. How are you guys doing?
I mean, Southeast Asia is still a Zerg region, so that's something interesting to mention, I guess. ZVZ finals. I mean, Terran is not broken everywhere, so that's good.
Yeah, Probe was playing in this one as well. Probe actually lost to Bystork, so I think that is somewhat surprising. Well done there by Bystork. This was also brought to you by the Cranky Ducklings. You can follow it on their channel. All the good things that come along with it. Next up, we had the Spicy League Season 2, NA Finest. And this defeated Team BRME. Single Horny Ponies defeated 6-4, 6400. And the Tier 3 Goats defeated Zergfetch and Jennison. All right, guys. Now I want to know who is part of the Single Horny Ponies. Apparently, it's Dolan, Viper, Disrespect, Melody, Colorbear, and Scrubbles. Well, guys, that's NA StarCraft in a nutshell.
That's an amazing team. I would cheer for them every day. Single Horny Ponies.
It's good. Obviously, memes aside, I think fun team leagues are important as well in StarCraft, right? Like, it's cool, of course, when big organizations go up against each other, but a lot of the good organizations just simply only have 1 or 2 players. So making up random team leagues and having some fun with teammates, I think is really cool. And it seems like this does have some of the better North American players in it. I mean, we see Pili is still playing in this one as well. Disc, of course, has been doing well. So I think that's kind of cool. Ben, you look very confused.
Actually, I was just looking at how many walkovers there was, and it feels like nearly half the matches are walkovers. Because I was like, oh man, even specials part of this. But like, yeah, that's a bit unfortunate. But it's always nice to see teams partaking and doing clan wars and stuff. And yeah, single horny ponies 5-0. I'm a fan, dude.
Yes, and this was also brought to you by the Cranky Ducklings. I mean, there are a lot of Cranky Ducklings out there, so that obviously helps for them to be live all the time. But this is cool. It's always fun to watch some Team StarCraft 2 action. Next up, tournament that I obviously know a little bit about, the Zelnaga Finals. We had the 5th edition. And before we go ahead and talk about this Clem nerd, I'm sure Funka wants to talk about it because he's just winning all of them, and you too, Ben, because he's Terran. Harstem, how many have you played? You played 1, 2?
1.
Why?
I don't know. Usually on the Wednesday, I keep the evening free.
Wow. Okay. Is that just like your dedicated free evening? That's
Yeah,
always...
usually, yeah. Saturday is my complete free day, and Wednesday is my free evening. So it's like,
Okay. Are you gonna play at least in the last one? We're trying to make the next edition the coolest and the baddest, so we give off a good signal to Red Bull. You know, we're trying to get as many community members in, and obviously, hopefully, as many pros as well. So, do you think you'll make it next Wednesday for us, mate?
I might be able to get in there.
Okay.
I might just be able to.
Lambo, you've played like 3 or something, 2 or 3. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think 3.
Okay. I mean, 3 is obviously quite all right. Why do you think we don't see more? Because I think the idea of the top 4 getting paid is really cool, right? It's not just 2 players, and there are no EPT points, but I still think the fact that the top 4 gets paid in a tournament like this, I kind of expected a few more Europeans to participate. What do you think is stopping them?
I honestly don't know. I think this prize pool is way better than all the other online tournaments. Like, this is way better than all the cups that Wordy puts out. If you just look at the time investment from the players. So honestly, I just don't know.
What is the prize pool?
It's 500 euros every Wednesday, 250 for the winner. Sorry, 150 for second place, and if you make it to the semifinals, you get 50 euros as well.
That's really not bad at all.
Yeah. If you give Wardy $500, you can run 3 weeks, mate. for group stages. You can pay them for getting out of the 3rd group stage, and then there's a double elimination bracket with 12 players left. You get $125 as the winner.
I mean, you guys laugh, but that's, that is kind of how some of these online tournaments are being ran. And that's the funny thing is that, a long time ago, I met Gabe once in Cologne. We had a schnitzel. And I was like, hey, Gabe, you're not participating in like this Wadi tournament? And Gabe is sitting there with his knife and fork. He's like, online tournaments are a scam. It's like 7 years to win $12. I'm not doing that anymore. And I can get behind some of that. But this is like 500 euro, bam. It takes 5 hours, maybe 6 if we're running late. And then Gabe has only played 2 of them. He won 1 then, the second one. And then he lost last week against Gerald. And then obviously Gabe goes on a 45-minute speech about how it didn't mean much and it just doesn't really bother him. But then he keeps elaborating on what actually went wrong. And I'm just like, I wish that a few more of them would play, especially players as good as Gabe. I'd love to see them. But let's talk about this week's edition real quick. Funka, you cast it. I know you do. What stood out for you?
What stood out for me? Aside from the fact that Clem won 4 out of 5, which is obviously a real nice start, I guess Elaser being super, how should I put this? It is good every single tournament these days. Like, I like the way Elaser is playing these days. I used to not enjoy his playstyle that much, and I felt like there was some stuff lacking, but I feel like he's getting better at those these days. Soul, I think, is a player we should talk about. Obviously, being Terran is having a better day. Like, trolls aside, and meta-wise, I think he's doing better as every single Terran. But Soul is playing super well. I mean, I used to be quite frustrated with him because he tends to throw out games, or you can feel like he's not feeling comfortable, like he's not comfortable in his game plan, and sometimes he will throw out games. And I feel like he's doing so much better these days, and especially his TVZ in the late game is quite surprisingly good. I don't know what you think about it, Lambo, for instance, but I think Soul is playing like the campy late game style of Terran. Like he's playing this really, really well.
Yeah, I mean, he's really good at late game. First of all, he practices it always, but then also he starts making extra CCs at 6 minutes. So he kind of like he might die to a random move out from Zerg, but Zerg doesn't usually attack off creep. So if they don't, he's set up very well for the late game, and he usually has like 14 CCs at 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So that has something to do with it. He's also very good at just shift-clicking nukes. In general, I actually think Sol is quite good in ZVT, and I was very surprised by him not qualifying for TSL. I think that's one of the biggest surprises for me. Of players who didn't qualify for me was Sol, and I also think Kelazur is pretty good, but I think he lost to Protoss in every qualifier. So there's still some inconsistencies, but at least against Zerg, he's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think when I think of, how people talk about coaches and stuff, I think if Sol just had somebody that could like sit with him and talk just a minute or two, like what he should potentially aim for in that match, and kind of give him the ideas without him giving himself the ideas. Because one of the stories that I will always remember is when Kevin spoke to him at Katowice, and he's in like the loser bracket or whatever, and Sol goes up against Gerald and apparently plays like some kind of bad builds. And then Kevin goes up to him afterwards. He's like, "Hey man, like what happened?" And Sol is just saying how he's saving builds for maybe playing Showtime in several rounds' time, even though like there's going to be thousands of dollars on the line, and he's saving builds here and now. Like,
And he lost to Gerald.
yeah. Like, I mean, Gerald's definitely not bad. Like, he's not somebody you should disrespect so hard to not play well against. Like. But yeah, Sol is definitely one of those guys that could benefit so much from just having somebody like talk him through things a little bit, I feel.
Well, I'm with you. Once again, of course, fantastic job by Clem, now winning 4 out of 5 editions of the Zelnaga Finals. It's really cool. All that action takes place over at twitch.tv/Red Bull. Wardy and myself will be casting those games next Wednesday as well. That's the last edition, so we're going to try to make it as fun as possible. Of course, Indy and Funka and stuff are casting as well in Polish and French. So yeah, awesome stuff. Make sure to sign up if you're Diamond and above next week, 6 p.m. on Wednesday. We're trying to get the biggest field that we had so far and basically just make it the coolest show. So Red Bull lost StarCraft, and we'll get more of them.
Next up, Red Bull, just like kudos to them. I mean, the tournament is really, really, really freaking fun. And as you said, like the time investment for the players in terms of an online tournament and the payouts after that, like just everything in terms of format seems good. Maybe
that's one thing.
The show match in the end might be a problem, and it's getting a little bit, like we're getting every single time we're getting the same matchup, and I guess Clem just lost a little bit of his drive to win those because I do believe he can't get another.
I can comment that up real quickly, and that's the only thing that I am very upset about as well. At first, they had the great idea to just have the winner of this tournament and just win €250. Then you play the final boss, Rainer. I was like, okay, yeah, well, kind of cool, but what are they playing for then? They're like, what do you mean? I was like, what are they playing for? They're like, well, they're getting an interview on the Red Bull website. I was like, guys, that's not how this works. Like, I was like, they just played their heart out for 5 hours. I was like, nobody then wants to play a best of 3 against the best European Zerg or second best European Zerg for nothing. They're like, yeah, but they get futured. I was like, guys, this is not how pro gamers work. And I was like, you can't even ask that from them. So then we actually arranged the deal with AOC, where the winner, if you beat Rainer in the best of 3, you also get a monitor that's worth a couple €100. So I was like, hey, that's really cool. I was happy. Clem was happy. Then after the second week, they're like, yeah, but hold on, Roddy. It's not the meaning here or the idea behind the show match is not that Clem wins like 4 monitors. He can only win 1. I was like, so what are they playing for then? They're like, well, nothing. I mean, he already won the money. And I was like, oh. And I was like, yeah. And I tried really hard, but obviously Red Bull is a very corporate company. Contracts are signed, up front. At that point, you can't change stuff anymore. They cannot just change stuff in the middle of it because it takes like 1 million hours of paperwork and lawyers have to take another look at that. So that's just kind of what it is. That's obviously something that must be fixed for the second season. Because if people wonder, like, why is Clem like proxy rexing Rainer and he's playing normal against everyone else? It's like, Well, obviously we can't really say that, but that's because Clem at that point is like, to hell with this. I've played 6 hours of StarCraft. I can't even win anything here. I'm done. And you know what? I really can't blame him. Clem is such a sweetheart that he even sent me a message. He's like, sorry, Roddy, about the Rex. I was like, mate, I'm actually happy you did it because you proved my point. I was like, nobody blames you. Nobody cares. You did the right thing. Congrats on the victory. We're moving on. So I think that's the only thing that they should fix. But other than that, everything about the tournament series is obviously awesome.
Thank you, Red Bull.
Yep. Next up, guys, we're taking I'm spending way too much time on this week in StarCraft. Okay, we have other topics to talk about as well, so we're gonna speed it up a little bit. Legacy Weekly Japan, Cyark was able to take the victory 2-0 in the grand finals. You can participate in this if you're able to read, write, and speak Japanese. Maybe Mapu can participate soon. I don't know. He's living in Tokyo somewhere. So yeah, that's awesome. Cyark, I believe he's been winning stuff for years in Japan, so nothing changed there, but it's cool to see them running tournaments. Next up, we had the weekly edition of Clan versus Reigner. This was actually kind of a cool tournament, a bit random. The name Global Clan Invitational. Creighton Olsen was casting almost all of it, also on Zuka TV and Bel Air StarCraft. It was a long tournament with 16 players, double group stage. In the end, grand final, Clan versus Reigner 4-2. Some pretty sick games. Lambo, did you catch them?
Probably, but these two play so much that I can't remember which one was which series, to be entirely honest. So can't talk too much. I'm sure the games were great.
They actually were very good. Kev, anything that stood out for you in this tournament?
Did I play it?
I don't think you played it. Like Max Packs and stuff played. Uthermal made semifinals. It was a 16-man invitational. I can take a look real quick.
I remember playing something with Creighton Olsen, but there's so many tournaments, and they all look alike. So it's like I have absolutely no clue what I played and how I did or who played.
Oh yeah, you played this. You were
nice.
You lost in the second group stage to Clem and Reigner.
Yeah, there's no shame in that, I think, because they were the finalists in the end. So I technically got third place, which is also not bad in this players field.
Yeah, you won your first group actually over Uthermal, Future, and Goblin.
I'm glad to hear. Yeah, I mean, we have so many tournaments. I really I played Goblin like 6 times in the past 2 weeks or something. I play Uthermal like every 3 days, and then I sometimes even practice with people as well. It's like, and everything just looks alike. It's like it's very difficult. Like the EPT cups and the TSL 5, it all kind of it's still fresh, but everything else is like. Yeah.
They're like, you want to play? And you're like, yeah, I'll play, because I was playing StarCraft anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Well, obviously, it was actually quite fun. I watched quite a bit of Creighton is casting in that tournament, and I thought they did a good job with it. Were a couple of good games, and I believe they've already announced season 2. I don't know if you have info about that, but I know it's coming. I think first qualifier is like a week from now. So Global Clan Invitational. Welcome to StarCraft, and we are happy to have you. Next up, Funka. Underdogs 2020 Season 2. I see a lot of French flags. Talk to me.
We've been running this tournament for 1 million years. I think it's 7 years straight now. I think we started doing it early 2013. The way we see it is just a way for all the French players to have something to play every week, every month of every year since 2013, as I mentioned. So obviously, between all the legends that we had, like obviously Drogo, Clem, DNS, who else won a lot of them? Daishi back in the days. It's like all the players that we eventually saw on the international scene or European scene. It's not like they started there, but they did have like an opportunity to show who was the boss in France, and that's the meaning of this tournament. So obviously, as you can see, like in winners bracket, like we've got Clem, Drogo, DNS, and maybe Marine Lord. He would have to defeat Denver. That match has been postponed. So Marine Lord is kind of going back into playing these days, as you could have seen. Like he was in a number of online tournaments. I mean, Underdogs is just really cool. I mean, that's our thing. Like we've been doing it for so much time that we just feel comfortable doing it all the time. Like we changed the format a little bit this year, a little bit more players, a loser bracket, and also the prize distribution is totally different, way less top heavy. Like a lot of those players, they will get like as in the Zarnaga Cup, they will get like maybe 50 euros if they are in a round 1 of losers, maybe 75 in losers round 2. So we're trying to split the prize pool in a way that pushes player to try their luck. And obviously, if Corona didn't happen, they were supposed to be live. The top 4 was supposed to be played in the O-Gaming studio. Obviously, we couldn't do it for season 1. We hope that we can do it for season 2, but we'll have to wait because we don't really know yet.
Yeah, I think really cool tournament. A lot of good players, and I gotta say, I feel like there's a couple other guys out there like Rotup and Minimav has been playing a lot again as well. Like he was gone for a while. Shadone is suddenly playing StarCraft again, so it's really cool, and it really does seem like Underdogs helps a lot for the French scene.
I wanted to add like one player I wanted to talk about is Arokfire. Maybe you've seen him lurking around.
Very, very young kid.
The guy is not even 13 yet. He will be 13 in like 2 weeks. So it's like, another, wave, generation of new players that's coming to the scene. And they, like, out of all the games that a 13-year-old could play, he actually picked up StarCraft 2 and then he's now getting super good at it. And that makes me super happy. So kudos to him. He's playing super great. Like, obviously, he lacks a little bit of experience, but he's up there. And even Minimath, like, playing for 10 years straight. Like, I used to play that guy in LANs in 2010. And he's like still like he's working part-time, he's doing his thing, but he's keeps on beating nerd like with Gung Fu Banda when we talked about him earlier. He's like the same kind of players.
Well, awesome. Once again, that's happening on twitch.tv/OGamingSC2. If you love French StarCraft or just high-level StarCraft, make sure to take a look at Underdogs. Next up, we have a tournament that's run by Chicken Man, the lovely Australian who's running this every Thursday at 7 p.m. It's just one of those weekly online cups. I believe that we'll give out OSC points soon as well. It's called Cock of the Walk. It has a little chicken in the top as well. And I always joke about this because this is kind of like the $10 tournament scene that I like to participate in as well. And if you guys are ever bored, you should see how Bly has done against the Protosis in these kind of tournaments. You'll see brutal things, guys. He's like 48-4 against Gerald, 23-1 against Goblin, 22-0 against Christianer. Like, it's insane. Bly has just been destroying all the Protosis in this scene. But these kind of tournaments are really cool. So big shout out to Chicken Man. This week's edition, Christianer made it to the final, but he wasn't stopped by Bly. He was stopped by the GOAT, the future GOAT, Vanya. He's winning everything. That kid is coming. Cyril, better watch out because Vanya is coming. Cock of the Walk first, WCS next. It's happening while EPT. Speaking of Vanya and the Russian scene, we have the Championship of Russia 2020. Obviously, all the top Russian players seem to be participating in this. It is happening online. We see Vanya and B, Basset, Cougar, TLDR, lots of Grandmaster League Russian players duking it out with each other in the Championship of Russia 2020. You can follow this at vkontakte, so vk.com/RESF. I have the feeling that you're going to have to speak Russian to understand the broadcast there, but if you do, I'm sure that this will be very awesome. The Russian scene is actually really cool. Right? You guys agree?
When you hear about some of the stuff happening behind the scenes at the Russian events, like I'm sad I don't speak Russian or get to visit them, like I hear about Cougar showing up and Revolver showing up and it's like, oh my gosh, like this is like 15 years ago stuff happening. But yeah, it's always fun to see the little people doing good, and I do love national tournaments in general as well.
Yep, we just had Underdogs and I think this kind of stuff is very cool as well. Now, we're all familiar with the pizza bi-weekly. Apparently now, instead of winning pizzas, we can win chicken wings, guys. Some drunk Canadians' first ever winner chicken dinner. A phrase that I guess was popularized by, damn it, what's the name called again? PUBG. Yeah, there we go. Playing StarCraft 2, awesome. Hungry? Good. Like chicken? Even better. We are excited to announce the first ever winner chicken dinner tournament. This will be a 2 times a month tournament where the winner gets a chicken dinner. Well, if you want to win chicken, guys, this is a tournament. There will be links posted in the chat. This tournament is open to all players of all level. No matter where you live, guys, you can win chicken by playing StarCraft 2.
Do you see the bottom line of this? Is this slightly ripping off the pizza bi-weekly? Sure, but it's free food. That's awesome.
It's going to be awesome. If I were them, I would promote it in like some of the countries where chicken is cheap, right? Like then you basically give out $2 first place. Like imagine if somebody in New York wins it and you have to do like delivery in Manhattan. It's like, man, it's an $87 pizza dinner or a chicken dinner rather. Anyways, guys, moving on. This week in StarCraft, because there was so much StarCraft. The 2020 StarCraft Gold Sub-League Weekly Spring Tournament. Time crushed all the opponents and won 4-0 in the finals against Punk. Does anybody have the ambition to really speak about Time destroying everyone here? No? Everyone is satisfied?
Beast.
Yeah. Summed it up perfectly. Time is a beast. So we are moving on. Obviously, you'll see more of Time in TSL 5. That's happening on the 16th of May. Next up, we have the Master Swan Open number 34. Bronze to Master 2. Funka. Hello, you mentioned it.
That's mine. That's the one. That's the one. I'm gonna grab those $15. I can guarantee you that. Gonna play the.
All
Come on, it's exactly my MMR at the moment. Like I'm 4.9, so that's like literally perfect for me.
Perfect. You're going to be the top dog in this Cranky Ducklings tournament. It's happening
I'm gonna
on
be the
my
Master
birthday as
Swan.
well. So you know what, Funka? What if you just go ahead, win this $15, and then you send it to me on my birthday? Do we have a deal? That's my present. That's all I want from you. I want you to win the Cranky Ducklings.
How about I give money to the Pylon show via?
That's fine too.
Yeah, that's
Patreon?
fine too. Yeah,
First
via
Patreon.
Patreon. That's what I will do.
But now
And
you
I'm
got to
gonna
win it.
register right now.
You said you wanted to participate, so now you got to win it, Funka. You're putting pressure
go.
on yourself.
Let's go.
Next up, we have La Espira podcast. Episode 14 is now available. In this episode, Demon Swap, Horus, and Jim Rising talk about how everything is online, TSL, GSL, and Communities War. I don't know if any of you guys saw this tweet of Jim Rising, like yesterday or the day before, where he's like, if you want somebody's honest opinion, you got to get me on a talk show because I don't sugarcoat things. I just say how it is. And I was like, all right, Jim. Like, it's like it made me feel a bit like nobody, literally nobody. And then Jim Rising is like, you should let me speak. It's like, we never stop you from speaking, Jim. Like, you're always welcome. But apparently, this is a podcast. It's of course in Spanish. But if you do like it, take a look at laespira.com/podcast. Next up, the Archangel Files, guys. There will be a quiz. Basically, this is going to happen on May 7th as well. So a couple hours after this European Pylon Show episode is done. It's taking place at Creighton Olsen's channel, twitch.tv/Creighton Olsen. Episode 1 will feature Archangels Gaming's own Kelazur, and the hosts are going to be Creighton Olsen and Rushi. So it's a little bit of a quiz. Basically, people in chat can participate. It's somewhat similar to the baneling quiz that sometimes takes place over at O Gaming. Funka, you were a great showmaster. We'll see how Creighton Olsen does.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. Sometimes you've got like players that get super mad. Like, don't invite Drogo. Drogo is gonna fight you so hard on every single question. So you know, be worried. That was something I wasn't prepared to deal with. Like, especially because I did it for the first time in English during Nation Wars.
Mhm.
Like, usually in French, I would have smacked him, across the face with like a few words that I would have selected in my mind. But in English, that seemed a little bit hard to do for me. So, I hope he knows what he's going into, because if you mess up your questions, then like the more intense of your players are gonna be super mad.
Well, that is a quiz, so if you guys just want to have some StarCraft content, but in a very relaxed atmosphere, participate in the quiz. It could be fun. Next up, guys, and we're going to do this real quick, because I don't think any of us 5 really knows a whole lot about Brood War. But this week in Brood War, a couple things did happen. We had the Brood War G's Weekly, and there is a guy that's very similar to Lambo Zerg, but his name is Lamo Zerg. He made it to the finals, but then he lost to the last scan. So congratulations to Scan for defeating Lamo Zerg.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, did you guys catch any of that?
Nope.
No, nobody knows anything. All right.
Well, I know that.
I just want to apologize to Artosis, okay? Artosis, we know this is your baby, and we're kind of butchering your baby over here, but we just don't know that much about Brood War. But we love you, Dan, and we apologize. Next up.
I followed Brood War a little bit at some point. That last scan, he's a good Korean that also like commentates in English and stuff. Like, it's kind of cool to watch.
Cool. Do you watch him on Twitch or Africa or?
It was on Twitch. This was like, when Brood War just got re-released, like remastered, and he was like kind of dominating everybody in the foreign scene. So he plays in a lot of the foreigner tournaments as well.
That's really cool. Next up, we had Shinhan Tank Pro League Season 3. It seems to be a team league, guys. I don't know. I see a lot of players I have never heard of beating each other. Ziggy is playing. Wow.
Ziggy, man. Yeah.
Ziggy is also losing in Brood War. That's really cool. I'm kidding. That's a joke.
This is so rough.
No, it's actually really impressive, obviously, that he plays both games at a high level. Anybody else that stands out, guys? Do we know anyone? Here, the second coming of Zero. I finished Zerg. Brood War?
Terror. Terror is a really, really old school guy from South America, I believe, from Brood War. But he's actually getting some victories against some Koreans amateurs, I guess. So that's pretty cool. But that's basically it for me. I don't really know.
Losing to foreigners, dude.
Yeah, even in Brood War. So
Yeah.
Gosu Dark and Terror winning against Koreans. So good on them. I don't really know the other players.
Me neither, Funky. Me neither. This is casted by Quicks. The top 8 teams at the end of round robin make it to the playoffs. Next week's schedule can be found over at Team Liquid in the Brood War tournament tab. So obviously, if you love Brood War, you want to see some Team League action with a lot of foreign players. This definitely seems to be a fun one to follow. And next up, we also have the same league, Shinhan Tank Pro League needs your maps. The map man looks for your assistant. The STPL finally decided to open this community, make maps rather than just the maps used in the pro scene. In any given season of STPL, there are usually 8 maps chosen overall, and I'm planning to open 2 to 4 slots depending on how things go for maps picked this contest. Mappers will have until the 25th of May, 9 p.m. to submit their maps, and obviously all the information there can also be found over at Team Liquid. Guys, that was it this week in StarCraft. There's been a lot of things happening in online StarCraft, and this is only the middle. This is only the beginning, technically, of the Pylon show now. Obviously, this is pretty much all we have right now because we don't have the big events. But that's kind of what's going to lead into the main topic of today. And that is that we're going to speculate and talk a little bit about what's happening with the ESL Pro Tour. And obviously the news that came out, I think it was last weekend, that a couple of the Dreamhacks have not just been postponed, they have been fully cancelled. Now, we cannot do everything yet because we don't know what's happening. I actually don't know what's happening either. I did have a couple of talks already with Apollo in the past. Those talks were very hopeful and promising. Basically, the TLDR is that they will find a solution. There is just a chance that it's not going to be the most ideal solution that we all want, and that is for these events to take place. But if that's not possible, they have to come up with different things. I think Apollo made a tweet a couple days ago about saying that he will release an update soon and inform us all what is actually happening with the ESL Pro Tour. But obviously, guys, this is going to have big implications, especially for you, Kev, and for you, Lambo, as well. I know that these are events that you guys look forward to. So how did you take in the news that these events have not been postponed, but have been straight up cancelled for the entire year? Harstem, you can go first.
I wasn't that surprised. I mean, I don't think it was very surprising for anyone, honestly. So I kind of already thought they were cancelled. Like, I didn't actually check. We were just kind of waiting for an announcement what would replace it. And I'm glad to hear that. I think last week Dreamhack made a tweet as well, like saying next week we're going to announce a schedule or at least some kind of roadmap to see what's going to go on. I think Valencia is still not cancelled and it's just been postponed to October, right? That's the only one of the Dreamhacks that I'm aware of that's been. So, I mean, it's good news. Like, even though the news is that things are being cancelled, like, we already kind of knew that. So it's like, yeah, I'm just glad that they communicated it, and they seem very open in their communication, which I really like in general. Like, everything, even that has been going wrong, like the Stay-at-Home Story Cup getting the EPT points, they've always been very transparent in all their communication. They've been pretty quick in announcing everything as well, and they've been very open to criticism, which wasn't always the case with how WCS was run. And I think for a lot of players, like, it's just a really welcome change in general. So a little bit of credit there to, well, we always give credit to Apollo, but just the whole EPT team and whoever takes care of that, because it's really a very welcome change. Like, WCS was difficult to plan for players. It was difficult to plan your life around. So it's nice. And this is another part of it that's kind of nice, you know?
Lambo, were you in the same boat where you're already kind of expecting all these events not to take place this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually, just like Harstem, I also just thought they were cancelled. I just assumed it. And I mean, now the news confirmed it. I wasn't really too sad because I wasn't too surprised. But yeah, I don't know what's about to come. In general, I didn't really like... I personally much prefer offline events over online events, so it's obviously a little bit sad, but it's better than nothing for sure.
Well, this leads into the next question, right? Let's say there is straight up no timeline possible where we can actually have these events even take place in the beginning of next year, because all of this was still supposed to lead into the grand finals of Katowice. That's still going to be the plan. At least that's what I think is going to be the plan, and that seems most likely. Now, if you were in charge, Harstem, what is your preferred scenario? Do you let the same event take place but then online? Or do you prefer regional events to then just earn points in a regional setting? Like, what is something that you would hope to read next week when there are some announcements being made about this?
I think there's got to be some kind of global events. I wouldn't mind some regional events, but the problem with regional events is, I'm not a big fan of them in general, but I'm also not a big fan of playing stuff online. Like, ping is really annoying, and already in the qualifiers we played last week, we already had so many issues with ping, and sometimes server just being completely unplayable, like getting a better connection to west and to east. At the first qualifier that I played is like, if that happens in an actual EPT tournament, in like a semi-final, I'd be rather triggered, I'm not gonna lie. So it's like, in that case, I wouldn't mind local stuff, but you can't play everything local, because then a lot of players that wouldn't really make it otherwise are gonna make it, and how do you divide the spots, stuff like that. So it's just, it's very difficult.
Funka, have you given any thought in like the rest of the year when it comes to the ESL Pro Tour for StarCraft 2? Like, what did you expect to happen? What is happening? And what would you like to see? What do you think are, good solutions or a good compromise given the current situation?
Yeah, well, the problem is, obviously, as you know, it's global. I mean, every single esport is going through the same kind of stuff, right? Like, every single game is affected by this crisis that we're going through. So obviously everybody's thinking about the issue and trying to figure out what's the best option. And sadly, I don't think there is a proper a solution to every single one of our problems. And what Harstem said makes a lot of sense. Like, basically, there's two school of thoughts. Like, you want to keep the the original plan, which is like people from different region will compete against each other, and then we'll clash them with the Koreans, with the GSL and everything, until the live event at the end of the year with Katowice. But the thing is, if you want to keep that, then you're gonna have those issues with servers that are just, I mean, we are already lucky that we got a pretty decent server infrastructure on StarCraft 2, because so many games are completely screwed, honestly, because they, like, players can't really play online. StarCraft, you can play, you can practice decently, you can play online. Even cross server is almost okay, but there are certain situations where it's not going to be okay. So honestly, I would rather personally that they accept the fact that this year is like an anomaly. Like, it's not going to happen every single year. It shouldn't, at least. I'm not a scientist, but shouldn't happen every year. And then maybe you do an exception for this year, and do a lot of regional events, so you don't have to fight like those issues and those the players being super frustrated about playing on a server that's not good for them. Because from what I've heard, like, maybe some player is going to have a decent ping to, let's say, US Central, and then somebody from Europe cannot play on US Central at all, or US East. It's going to lag for them. So then you've got to, do a, case by case ruling, which kind of sucks, to be honest. Because what happens if one guy cannot play on US and then the other guy can, and so basically you lost on a server that was really bad for you because your internet provider is just terrible and you can't play on that server. So I would rather have regional events, like do Europe, do North America, do a little bit of Southeast Asia outside of Korea. And then, you'll, as Harstem said, there's going to be players that will be qualified for the yearly finals that might not have qualified in the previous organization and format. But that's something you got to own, in my opinion. Like, this is super crazy what we are going through this year. It's not going to happen every time. Just make it, the fairest possible way. And that, in my opinion, is not gonna go like cross server. Like, don't play US West if you're a European player. It's just gonna be garbage. So try to make it as fair as possible and keep it on the same server is what I would like personally.
But then you would change everything. So basically what you're saying is, like, if you would like to have some regional competition and would like to get regional slots basically seeded into Katowice, you're basically asking to do everything different. Let's say like the previous circuit events that were planned, they're not happening. You just make up new regional events, take prize pool, move it around. It's like basically just script everything that was planned and
Yeah.
reform everything up to Katowice.
And believe me, like I know how hard it is to like have to throw everything out the window and make it like a 360 turn or 180 turn to make it reasonable for everybody. But I think like the situation we're in actually calls for those kind of measures. If you're gonna go into making those, you know, foreign events with some people in Korea, some people in North America, some people in Europe, what you're gonna have is just frustrated viewers, frustrated casters, and frustrated players, in my opinion. And I know it's terrible.
Yeah, I do think a quick counter argument to your argument already before we let Ben give his take on all of this as well is that obviously, like, let's say you can have a very interesting European competition, but I think after that, when it comes to, you know, the circuit, it already becomes a little bit less interesting, right? Like, yeah, and let's say you include like all the Americas, okay, so you'll have Special, Kalazoo, Neep, Scarlet, Future, but after that, it starts ripping off a little bit. And I think one of the big problems in the past has been like, are you staying up to watch the Southeast Asian qualifiers where people will actually get seeded into Katowice? They suddenly play for $20,000-$30,000. Like, will you tune in for those events, or, you know, the Australian one, or the American one, the South American one, maybe if they have their own? Like, do you think that's reasonable or feasible?
So in terms of viewership and how many people are gonna be watching, I mean, we have to do our parts. Like as StarCraft fans, like
you make it sound like a job. It's like, oh,
no, I mean,
I'll tune in and watch.
I'll watch those Aussies, you know, like I'll do it for the team.
I'll probably end up casting those events, like those Americas events and stuff like that. Like I'll end up casting those, and I guess like if the competition is fair and people just, you know, give it their all, I'll be casting them, and I'll be watching as much as I can. Like I know this is rough, and probably maybe my way is not the best one. Like I'm totally prepared to understand that, and if Apollo comes in or ESL and Dreamhack comes in with a totally different plan, I'm not going to be the guy that tells them like that this is the most garbage idea of all time. No, I know this is rough. Like I've organized tournaments and I helped organize tournaments throughout the past with gaming. That's something we do quite often, and I know people are getting frustrated at Nation Wars because there's almost no way around it, right? Like in the format that we think, like playing cross server online, there's almost no way around it. So if you don't split those things up, then you're gonna have people that are gonna be frustrated. But I don't think there's a good answer, and that's the most annoying thing about it all, is that there is no right answer that's gonna fix everything, because internet is just not there yet. We can't play one guy from South Korea and one guy from Europe and expect both of them to have the same experience. That's just not possible. So
but that would technically not happen too often. I think when you're thinking of the circuit events, right? I think we can mostly focus on the circuits because GSL is taking place, and for them, not too many things change other than, you know, the unannounced events that maybe was happening. But I think most of the planning for Apollo and his team and ESL will come down to the circuit and the events we had. Ben, I know that a lot of things have just been said, but maybe first, how did you take the news? Did you also expect it? And where do you think that the Pro Tour should go from here?
I did expect it, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Valencia gets cancelled. You know, like I don't know how long this is going to go on for, but yeah, I'm pretty much open to everything being cancelled for quite some time.
But what do you think what is your ideal solution then?
I think this is going to be one of those situations where any choice feels like the wrong one, which is always kind of a sucky position to be put in. If you go back to it being region-based, I think that really is bad for certain scenes like Europe. Personally, I think playing with ping would be better than that. But again, it's always very, very tricky. I think one thing that I personally wouldn't want to see, though, is it going back to like the region stuff, just because if the big finals ends up having players that don't really belong there, that aren't the best of the best, that's where I lose a lot of interest. And that's ultimately what we're fighting for, even though we're fighting for absolute fairness, right? Which when it's online, it's never going to be 100% fair, but we do want the best players, the best participants, the best of the best to go at it. And I do think the region stuff doesn't really do that well.
Yeah, before you go on, Funka, Lambo, what do you think about everything that Funka just said? And if you would have to make the hard choice right now between, let's say you kind of keep the previous format, you just make those events take place online. You know, you can still do Challenger the way we would have always done Challenger. And then you can technically still run a Dreamhack, just run it online with the exact same format, the triple group stage, etc., etc. Are you in favor of that, or would you go into a more extreme solution like Funka just proposed, and that is scrap everything that we had planned and let's go regional?
I would definitely not go regional, specifically not where all the regions are for themselves. I think that's a little bit too much. I mean, we saw WCS Winter, which was a little bit different, also kind of regional for Europe specifically, and then all the others combined.
Mm-hmm.
That's another option. But already there, which this gave the same WCS points, and there even you could see a little bit different in strength. But if we actually start splitting up all the regions to, we let the Australians play, and I mean the Taiwanese have their own region. I'm not sure how we would divide the spots to make that fair. But yeah, I mean, as you guys said, there is no real perfect option. I would not run a Dreamhack, I think, just in one weekend. But since it's online, you can run it over a longer time. But I think I would prefer a global event. You maybe could also do one global event and then one maybe a little bit split up, like the winters, and then hoping that maybe at the beginning of the next year you can fit in another actual offline event. I mean, no one obviously knows how long this is still going to go on, so it's a little bit rough to say for now what exactly is the perfect option.
But I think it would also kind of defeat the purpose of like the Pro Tour. Let's say if we just wait, you postpone stuff until you maybe want to run something, or let's say like maybe in January and February, we can just run a LAN or two. But then basically the year leading up to Katowice turns into Katowice 2020, 7 months of almost nothing. And then basically if you're really good in January, then that's going to be enough to carry it through. Like, I don't know if that...
I mean, in my scenario, I would have played at least 2 big tournaments online before already. I mean, usually it's like 4. I think just postponing everything is obviously not an option. I'm just like, for me personally, I would actually hate both options as a player, because I played the NA qualifiers, and the one I actually was fortunate enough to only have a single match on the NA server, and I got up to like 1k ping, and that was on NA East, and I just had lags, and then 5 seconds, at 5 seconds even. Before my pause would go through, like the game would go on, and how can I even verify that the last 5 seconds I couldn't play? And if that actually happens in an important tournament, that's shit. But at the same time, I don't want to give up spots to Taiwanese players playing against Australians or something like that. I don't know. Like, all the options are not perfect, but we have to choose from one of these. And yeah, I don't know.
Funka, you wanted to do a speak?
Yeah, there was just one thing, like when Ben talked about like having the best players being represented, and obviously I'm all for this. Like, obviously you want the best players to be represented in the live finals, but do you think that people are actually going to believe or are actually going to feel okay with the players that are going to be qualifying through global events with lag, with ping? Like, you know, that's going to be a topic of discussion, right? Like. Because there might be some I can guarantee you, like, every single upset is gonna be so much more like talked about, and you know they're gonna think about every single situation if it's being played cross server, because obviously some players are gonna be super bad with lag, or certain races or play style are gonna be super bad with lag, and then if you play cross servers, if you've got those situations, I guess like the players that qualified are not gonna be, you know, considered, or there's gonna be talks about whether or not they deserve to be there, which is an issue for me. Like, I want like, if you go regional, in my opinion, like those players that qualified, well, they won on their server. Like, there's nothing to be said about it. Like, nobody's going to talk about the fact that Terran has got better internet, and that's the reason he's top 1 in the ladder. Like, he's top 1 in the ladder because he's the best one, and there is nothing to be said about that. So that's one of the things that I would, like, you know, counteract what Ben said with, is that sometimes there's going to be matches that people are going to be like, well, you know, it's been played on West, and his, you know, internet is, you know, notoriously bad or whatever, and that's something that really annoys me as a viewer and as a caster because I'm gonna think about it and it's gonna mess my head up. And it happens in Nation Wars all the time. Like I'm like, yeah, I don't want to talk about the server, but I might have to talk about the server we're playing on because it might have impacted the way the series has been played. So
I mean,
there's that.
I like that you kind of open up with this, Funka, because it does open up the biggest dilemma, right? Like, do you want to make it cool and exciting throughout the year, or do you want to make it as fair as possible? But how do we eventually go into the global finals from now? Because the Pro Tour is obviously super important. Every event is important. Every championship matters. But it's all leading up to the next Katowice, which is then supposed to be the biggest and baddest StarCraft event maybe that we've even ever had. Because finally there is no BlizzCon matters, but Katowice matters. Like, no, it's BlizzCon at this point. So 2021 BlizzCon was supposed to be the tournament with legit the 20 or 24 absolute best players in the world, the best players performing throughout the entire year. And obviously, if you make it regional, this is kind of where Lambo brought up. He's like, I don't really want to give up slots. That's how a lot of Europeans see it. That's maybe how some of the top American players see it as well. That is obviously a big dilemma that you're facing here, right? If you're ESL, like, do you want to make it fair throughout the year? Or do you want to still keep your super badass finals that you were planning?
So, yeah, like, within regards to the regional stuff, I think there have been times that I have been, like, genuinely excited about that stuff. For example, you know when Stefano won WCS Europe? And like the countries all had their own thing, and nearly every country was like super duper hype, right? And I know they like when Europe happened, and not that many players were missing because you had like the top 3 or so from each country going, which was really, really cool. So I mean, there have been regional stuff that has been good, but obviously it's been very wide scale. Like that costs a shit ton of money. But within regards to talking about server and like talking about these players getting there, was it like unjust? Do I think if I'll just say some names, if Europe ends up with like 4 slots or 6 slots and it's like, okay, you got the usual suspects, but then you got some very clear names that's like they're not there, and then you have Go Joey and like some other names, because the only thing that I have in my head that is very fresh is so the previous years when we had WCS and we had like group stage 2 at an event that was really hard. It was really hard. And then group stage 3, it's progressing into the tournament, but all of a sudden group stage 3 is easier a lot of the time because you have like these slots that have been divvied up by the regionals. Like you could have I remember my group stage 2 was like Lambo, Euthermal, TLO, myself, and then I'd see group stage 3, it's like Puck, Rex, and then the two, like, it didn't make sense at all. So whichever way we look at this or go about it, there's always going to be things. So it's like, did this player deserve to get here because of lag? But does this player actually deserve to be here at all, kind of thing? So it's always going to be difficult.
Kev, before we talk about some other things, like maybe some players can actually get a benefit out of this entire situation because some of them can be performing better online than they do offline. That's obviously a real thing. Do you have a final take on where you'd like to see all of this go right now? Like if you were the man in charge, what solution would you go for?
Definitely just keep the Dreamhacks the same, but just play them online. I think regional stuff is definitely not the way. And I kind of disagree with Funka that people question it a lot. I mean, we had the most recent stay-at-home story cup where I don't think there were too many people that were like obviously you always have the people that defend everything and everyone's like, innovation would have lost if it wasn't. But I don't think it was that widespread. And I felt like that tournament was a pretty big success. And that's kind of how I imagine a Dreamhack to go at this point, except maybe there's someone standing next to Rotti instead of him doing it alone for 2 days straight, 3 days straight.
Yeah, no, I had a little chat. I mean, that's obviously something that I don't mind sharing. A couple of weeks ago with Apollo, and basically he was talking about all the things that you guys are talking about right now. You know, the ups, the downs, what is good about it, what is bad about it, which direction can they go to. And I'm sure they'll release more info soon. And at that point, he was really like, he's like, well, mate, we're doing our best. He's like, and don't worry, we're going to make StarCraft happen. And we're going to go for the absolute possible solution. We'll find it. But at this point, I generally don't know which one it is yet. And I was like, I don't envy you. So I just gave him my feedback, which was, on one hand, I was at first thinking about everything that Funka said. I was like, yes, I do want it to be the most fair, and I do want the games to be, the highest quality of, or basically the best play for the players. I want to see them show their A game. I was like, on the other hand, like, going really back that far in time, the regional stuff, it can be fun, and I do really support regional competition ever, but that's why I like Challenger. Challenger is there to support the regional play. I don't think that regional should bring you into the World Championship final. So I was leaning a little bit more towards what Harstem just said. I was like, I think you can do the Dreamhacks online, but obviously, you can actually optimize it a little bit as well, right? It suddenly doesn't have to be a 3-day event where the doors only open on Friday at 12. Like suddenly you can start a little bit earlier. You can start on a Thursday. You can make it a 4-day event. But this obviously does change a lot of things, right? Let's say suddenly we'll have a circuit event. Let's use Dallas, for example. Dallas is not going to happen. We're going to do it online. We'll do the exact same way. We have challenges leading into Dallas, and Dallas will take place online. These are the dates. This is going to change a lot for players, right? There are players who hate traveling. There are players who actually thrive at that offline environment. I can start off with you, Funka. It feels like we lost Demuslem for a split second. I don't know where he went. But Funka, let's say things do happen online, and that is obviously kind of in the line of expectation because lands are just not possible at this point. Who do you think this would really favor? Is this someone that stands out to you? They're like, man, I think player X, Y, Z. Uh-oh. I don't know if we're still here.
I'm still here, right?
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have your
Was it
camera.
me?
You were echoing for some reason, Roddy.
Okay, I saw you guys, and then Ben disappeared, and then suddenly I got kicked out as well. But we're back. Anyway, Funka, I'll start off with you, and I'm gonna grab some drink real quick. But let's say things take place online.
Yeah.
Name me a couple players that you think like I think this is really good for player X, and I think that certain players could maybe struggle with this.
I don't know who's gonna be struggling with it. I think people in general are gonna feel comfortable. Like ping and server set aside, right? Like just the fact that they're playing at home, I don't think is gonna make it bad for anybody. But on the other end, I feel like some people that are, I guess, not as comfortable and a little bit maybe they got stage nerves and stuff like that are gonna do better. And obviously, in that case, I wanna highlight players like I mentioned him already, but I think Sol. It might be benefiting from this because it felt like he couldn't perform at his own level when he was playing offline. I mean that's the throws I was mentioning and the nerves and the micro mistakes. Probably Clem. I mean Clem has not been performing that well in offline events ever since that WESG Europe, I think, where he did pretty well. So Clem obviously is gonna do good. Sol I mentioned, what you were aware, Roddy. And then other players, I don't know, like that. Those are the two that I think about right now. That I feel like we're on the verge of being really good, and we talked about and we memed about the prophecy of Clem winning something this year. And obviously, like him feeling comfortable being at his own own place, own setup, and everything is gonna do even better. And he's obviously playing super great these days, so I can see him doing super good this year throughout the year.
Kev, maybe a personal question for you before you talk about other players. Like, how do you think this would impact you? Do you feel like it would be a good thing if you play online, or it doesn't change much?
I think cross-regional play is probably the worst for TOS.
I agree with that.
Because we use a lot of spells that are rather less second in a way. So for me, I'm not sure. I think it might be better. I do tend to get a bit nervous offline, which I don't really get too much online. So maybe that kind of cancels out. But I think for player wise, it's gonna be. I actually think that people that are really good offline they're not gonna struggle more, but they're gonna have a harder time. People like Special, Neep, Serral, Rainer, I think they're absolutely insane offline, and I think having everyone else kind of play from their home is gonna impact them as well.
Lambo, what about you personally, and also maybe speaking of some of the other players in the scene?
I think most people are comfortable from playing online. I think personally for me, I would. I personally am terrible with ping. Like if I play with 100 ping, I can't believe how Special is playing with 200 ping. I feel like my brain is lagging. Like when anything is wrong, if I'm playing on a 60 Hz monitor offline, if they don't have a proper monitor, I think I'm playing like 1,000 MMR worse. If I'm playing with ping, I'm also playing absolutely awful. So, like for example, at the stay-at-home Story Cup, I needed to forfeit my series against Sort of basically because I was just lagging. So, like when that kind of stuff happens at an actual super important event, that obviously sucks. So I think it mostly just favors people with the better internet connection a little bit. That's the only option we have. Like obviously, it's better for the Americans a little bit because they have like they won't have as much ping. It really will suck for like the Chinese, Australia, right? They're gonna have the biggest ping out of all of them.
The Russians.
So, yeah, the Russians have pretty bad internet connection to NA servers as well. And I'm saying that while I think that the global events is the best option, but I think those players would be the least favorite, basically just based on the internet connection, which sucks, obviously.
Ben, any 2 cents on that?
I was actually thinking a little bit about the potential for like if everything is online, like the potential for cheating and stuff, or is everybody just like obviously there's just going to be lots of delays and whatever you, but
Question to be asked. I agree.
like there have been hacks that haven't been like noticed. Like I remember playing against somebody in a WCS qualifier one time, and the guy seemed really like it seemed off, you know, like this guy had very good stats, but I've never heard of him. And afterwards, he confessed that he was hacking. And when speaking with Blizzard, they even said like they had no way of finding it out because you can't do like a single person scan. It's like a global scan kind of thing. But people have done pretty absurd things for pretty small amounts of money, never mind the amount of money that we're going to be dealing with. So I definitely do worry about those kind of things too when it comes to online only play.
I think that's a very valid concern. But obviously, TSL, for instance, is already a big qualifier too, right?
Yes.
The only thing you can say then is that it's hard to make money by playing the TSL qualifiers. And suddenly, if you start doing Challenger in 5 regions online, maybe then it becomes a little more tempting. But I don't think there's a perfect solution for that. I think in the end of the day, there's always referees, there's always admins who will keep an eye on everything. But yeah, I don't think there is much more that can be done against it than what the people are already doing right now, right?
Yeah, I also think that we're super fortunate in StarCraft because I feel like if I'm playing against some unknown guy that's 600 MMR below me, he can have a production tap hack or whatever, and I'm still gonna beat him. Like I think in StarCraft at the highest level, where this is actually gonna go to the money. First of all, I don't think anyone is hacking, but that could be naive or whatever. But it might not make as much of a difference as, for example, Warlick in CS:GO or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, obviously there are very obvious hacks and stuff, and if you generally at the highest level of play, you kind of know what your opponent's doing anyway in StarCraft 2, which is kind of fortunate. I just know that there've been moments where I remember this happening with Elky one time, and he didn't realize that it was kind of like forbidden. So he was playing Hearthstone, and he had like a stream going, and they saw in his glasses reflection that he was watching a stream kind of thing. And even though it was like 10-minute delay and didn't really have much say, it was like, you know, it was a bad thing. And I know they do it in other games as well, where if everything is at home, you do have to have like another camera set up to have like your display shown kind of thing, which would obviously be a massive way to just be like, okay, nothing scandalous is going on here. That could also be kind of cool, actually. Like, say if it did get to like the top 8 in a tournament, and like the tournament organizers actually sent out like, here's a standard, a cam to have this kind of thing, and you know, have that kind of like, it would make it a bit more. The integrity would be a bit stronger, and also having a cool camera angle and whatever. But yeah.
But how do you get a camera there in the middle of a tournament and then you figure out who's the top 8?
I don't know.
Unless you set out 300 cameras.
To everybody, mate. To everybody.
Everybody that ever participated in a qualifier. I think that stuff is really tough. I do agree with what Lambo said. I think StarCraft 2 is a game in general where just cheating is not going to make you really good. You need to be good, and then you need to cheat to really get something out of it. But I feel like almost all the players that are at the level of, at least close to competing with Lambo, Harstem, stuff like that, those are guys that you've met at events. Those are guys that have been around for a long time. They didn't suddenly appear last week, and it's like, hey, my name is Billy. I'm really good at StarCraft. And it's like, I saw that proxy immediately. That just doesn't really happen in StarCraft 2. So I do think that's a good thing for our game. I think it's really tough. I definitely don't envy Apollo right now. It feels like it's hard to make the correct calls at this point, but eventually, obviously, decisions have to be made, and I do believe that the decision is going to be made, like probably already made or in the upcoming week or two, because the year goes on. We're already in May, guys. Normally, Dallas would have taken place like pretty much 2 weeks from now, and obviously that means that Challenger would have already been well on the way at this point. None of that is happening. I do think it's important to actually keep the pro circuit moving. It's not going to be ideal, but I think sometimes you just got to go with the lesser evil.
That's the thing. I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about what was happening in StarCraft, even though we don't have any major event going on. I mean, there was the qualifiers for TSL, obviously, that counts as a road towards a bigger event, but that's the thing. Like, I'm super happy of how, like, in general, the StarCraft 2 scene is adjusting to everything. I think we're doing great in regards to that compared to other games. I think people and players are, playing their hearts out, even though it's online and we've got issues, but still people are moving forward with it. We've got a lot of content, lots of new tournaments showing up. So that's really great. And I mean, that does buy ESL and Dreamhack and Apollo a little bit of time for them to figure out what they want to do, because whatever they decide to go for, they will have to take a strong decision and they will need to own it, right? Because it's a weird ass time we're living in, and this is like one of the craziest situation we had to face globally in the entire world. So obviously, because of the situation being so messed up, like, they need to take strong decisions, and whatever they do, I think will be like, all of us will be like will be helping out ESL, Dreamhack, Apollo, and obviously everybody that's connected to making that tournament and that circuit working, and we'll be behind them. Like, we'll be helping them, but they need to take those decisions and they need to own them after that, because we want to have a great season, no matter the situation and the crisis we're living in. So
I do think it's maybe important to mention as well that even though some of these events might take place online, I think the chance of that is very high. That doesn't necessarily mean that you guys won't get a proper broadcast out of it, right? We see that with other games that ESL is running. They can still get casters, for instance, to the studio in Poland, where Katowice normally takes place, and still have 3, 4, 5 casters like they always do in that building. We'll practice social distancing just like they do in the other games. But then you guys will still get a proper broadcast. It's not like suddenly Dreamhack Dallas is happening, but it's happening online, and now you get Roddy and a shitty microphone from his bedroom. Like, that's obviously not how these events would take place if they do get held online. So I do think that's one upside for the StarCraft fans out there. But obviously for the players, I think it would be very disappointing to play from home. Everybody loves traveling, love going to the events. I think we always have a good time with each other. Yeah. On the other end, the pro circuit must move on. So, Funka, before we move on to something slightly different, do you have anything that you'd really still like to say about, the pro tour and things that are happening?
Honestly, I think we pretty much covered it, and I don't want to talk for hours and hours because I can't get my point across. But I just wish it's gonna go well, and we'll have quality StarCraft. I'm loving the meta we have these days. Obviously, Terran winning makes me super happy. So it's just I know we're gonna have a good year no matter what. And yeah, I hope they make the right decisions. But as we said, we talked about it for half an hour. It's just that there's no good decisions to be made. Like, it's just there just has to be one, and everybody needs to get on board. And personally, I will be on board and we'll be casting it as always.
Lambo, is there anything else you would love to add?
No, just I think everything has been said about this topic pretty much. Yep.
Benjamin?
No, yeah, I wish there was a way that if Blizzard could host certain servers that somehow were magically like specially made for good latency between players, maybe like very specialized servers, because that could be maybe one wraparound with the situation. Like I remember back in the Warcraft 3 days when we used to specifically get hosts that was on not quite battle.net, but like it would be as fair as it could be between the players and what have you.
Yeah.
Because right now, like the situation in Warcraft 3 is also really bad because
Oh yeah.
they've removed local area network entirely. So now you have to be on a BNet, and actually, like for Koreans to play against foreigners and stuff, you actually have to play on like a Chinese client entirely. It's impossible any other way. So I mean, like, yeah, it's a rough situation.
Kev, anything else you'd really like to add?
No, I think everything
No.
was said.
Just wait and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Just to make it clear real quick, most of you guys are in favor of kind of continuing the current plans, but then doing it online. Maybe besides Funka, would love to see more regional play. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, we'll see. I think we're safe to say that we're all very excited about the announcement that will be made soon. Apollo will speak to us. Dreamhack will speak to us. And then we'll learn a lot more about what's happening in the upcoming months when it comes down to the ESL Pro Tour. Now, guys, maybe something a little different, a slightly lighter topic. Funka, have you had any thoughts on the proposed balance changes? You know, last week there was an entire episode dedicated to it, but it's been out for a week. Have you seen a couple games? What do you think about it?
I haven't seen the games yet, but I did like went and read everything there was to know about that balance patch, and like obviously I need to see a couple of games happening because we've been casting the tournament, but I wasn't on it, so I didn't get a chance to get a glimpse at those games. First of all, like what really caught my eye is just like the first part of the article, which is like the thoughts about the state of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I usually kind of enjoy them. Sometimes I feel like they are maybe a little bit out of focus. They would like miss a couple of things. But like when I'm reading this, I'm like, yeah, we are pretty much on the same page, right? Like what they say about TVZ, what they say about like the way the TVP got a little bit, fairer, I guess, in a way. ZVP being probably the biggest point of focus at the moment. I think that's the matchup that needs a little bit of changes to be more enjoyable on the professional scene. So I'm kind of agreeing with most of what they say. I don't have that much opinion on PvP because it's just a matchup that I don't get really well. I do believe that not every single change will go through. Obviously, that's something that it never happens usually. Like they just open up the discussion on a lot of different things, but then in the end they won't go with every single one of the changes. So I'm guessing, like obviously Zerg is being nerfed the hardest on this one, but I don't hate the changes. Like most of the changes I do agree with. But the thing is, I don't think they can do all three of them, all the three nerfs, like Tumor, Baneling, and Queen. I think they will have to choose. Personally, I would like to see the Queen being changed a little bit. So I like the range thing on the Queen. But then at the same time, I know Artosis would really love for the Banelings to not have those +5 HP. So just in general, I like what they added. Like the battery overcharge might be a little bit random. I don't really understand the change with the mine. Why would they do that? I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, I'm more focused on what's happening with Zerg. Obviously, microbial shroud or whatever it's called is just a meme. Like I don't think we will be able to use that upgrade anytime soon. Maybe I'm wrong, but for now I don't just see it. But the other changes like Queen, Baneling, and Creep Tumor, I like all of those three. But I do believe that they won't go through with all of the three changes because that would be a little bit too much.
Now, Lambo, last week we had Americans on the Pylon show, and they've been discussing balance for hours. You, as the Zerg representative here on the European EU Pylon show friendly time zone, what did you think of all the changes? And now it's been out for a week. Did you play a couple games? What do you think of it?
I absolutely did not play a couple of games. I also didn't watch any games yet, but I think it's pretty clear how these changes affect even without playing. Like the Zerg changes, as Funka said, like they talked about how ZVT was in a pretty good state right now, and that Protoss needs help in PvZ, right? And then they did these changes to target PvZ.
Yeah.
And these changes affect TvZ a lot as well.
Yeah.
A lot, if not even more so than PvZ. For example, specifically the Baneling one, I think, doesn't affect against Protoss almost at all. and FX versus Terran very, very much, where we finally have an even matchup. You know, we had like at the last BlizzCon, Zerg was favored at like 55%, and they did the patch, and Zerg struggled for a little bit. It was in Terran's favor, like 54%, and then now it's actually in a really good spot. And now they give us 3 nerfs at once for the one matchup. I find it a little bit much.
Does it not affect Storm? Sorry, the baneling health.
No, because they regen, right? The
Yep.
banelings regenerate HP.
Yes.
Okay.
To DNS, and he was like, "That's the thing they should do. Like, they should remove that +5 HP." He was talking about PVZ like quite a bit, and he wanted that change.
I'm pretty sure that banelings right now kind of survive, or not so, but like they can still get the damage done when getting stormed, as opposed to before. Because I remember the 5 health being quite big. Because storm is 5 damage per tick, very fast, right? Like that's how it's measured.
I thought it's
like 20. That's what I always thought, but I think you could be right. I thought it was like 20, 20, 20.
I remember you and me, Kevin. We talked about this one time, and like we went into quite a lot of detail about the 5 health thing. And I think it means that the storms will actually be quite a lot more effective.
No, but
you don't think so?
People
I spoke
this specifically.
I spoke with Monk as well, who knows a lot about that stuff. Because for people who don't know, Monk, he's the main guy for co-op, but he also assists the balance team a lot. And I speak a fair amount with him, and he said it's a misconception that a lot of people have that Storm will actually do a lot better against banelings. And when I played a little bit in the balance test tournament, and even off creep, like the banelings still get through a complete Storm basically just fine. So it doesn't seem to do too much. Maybe some units kill it quicker if you have some damage banelings, but I think it's because of the 1 regeneration they immediately get that it actually doesn't quite matter. So I think they get like maybe 7 damage ticks or 5, like you said, but then they still have like 1 HP. Well, then they explode on your Archon, and that would have happened before anyway. So there might be some scenarios where they die a bit quicker, but in general, this change I think is.
But if it is 7 ticks of 5, and then it's technically 8 because they get the 1 health regen, it will still be 7, so it would be less, no?
Maybe 6. I'm not very good at math, Ben. I barely managed to pass elementary school.
It's obviously.
I think it would always have to do like 8 ticks of damage then, right? Because if it's 35, 7 times 35, but there is regen, so then you would always need 8 ticks of damage.
Yeah. But I mean, all the changes I found interesting, and I mean, what did they do about Protoss? Oh, the shield battery thing.
The shield battery thing.
When I first read that, and I was like, oh my god, like shield battery rushes and stuff are already freaking insane. But then I found out like, oh, it's actually like a home thing. Like it's got to be within range of the Nexus. That seems like the weirdest change to me. I'm not really sure how that's going to come in. Like maybe
I think it's the best change.
You do?
Yeah.
Well, it needs to be global for Nexus, though. Like any Nexus should be able to cast it on the shield battery that's in range of a Nexus. I think if it's just that one particular Nexus, I really don't think it's good.
You mean like as soon as you can combine the Nexus and you can cast within its
basically Chronobus.
Yeah, I agree. That would be a good change, but I think it's actually it's a very specific change. I think it is mainly aimed at PvP, which will have very little side effects. And I think the change does almost exactly what it wants to achieve. I'm not quite sure about Proxy Robo, but I think it helps a lot in 3-base situations, especially if you get a little more range where you can defend spots that are slightly outside of your natural or your third. I actually think it's a very good change. I'm not entirely sure if it will do everything it wants. Like, I'm not sure if it will beat Proxy Robo, but I think the change, I think it will make PvP a lot better matchup without impacting too much on the other matchups, honestly, which... It sounds very similar to a couple of years ago. In PvP, we had an issue with Artos being too strong. Mm-hmm. And then they did a very specific change, which everyone was like, oh, this is a weird change. Why would they do it? Completely fixed the problem. And I think this is very similar.
I love when Kevin says, like, there are very few side effects. All I can see is, like, proxy Nexus, shield battery, void race overcharging on everything. I can just see memes on memes on memes. You know, it's like, try this, guys. There are very few side effects. And before you know it, you're getting Nexus rushed over here.
I just tested the baneling thing for sure. And it doesn't change against Storm. So it does 10 damage per tick kind of thing. Okay. And then they get 1 health back.
Yeah.
So the 35 goes to, it goes to 6 health, whereas like the one, it'll go to 1 health basically.
Yeah. What about
that's good to know.
the queen range nerf then in PvZ. What do you think
Excellent.
about it, Harstem?
It's good against the Oracle, especially.
Oracle gives
For
Prisms a
Prism,
little more viability.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it doesn't really add more builds to our repertoire. We'll still be stuck with the same builds, just a slight buff, which I think is fine. I think the early game of PvZ, like if you're not counting the Adept Glaive builds, which are kind of popular now, but I think Zergs are starting to figure it out a bit more. I'm not sure how much improvement there can be made there from the Zerg side, but a lot of the time what happens in PvZ is a new build comes out and it feels really unbeatable, which, I mean, the Glaive Adept build for 2.5 months have been, kind of destroying everyone. But it feels like it's already slowing down a bit, and usually after a couple of months, Zergs will have the optimal response. And then it's nice that it's just a little bit better, because we don't have that much. We have the Glaive Adept build, we have some DT openers in combination with Glaive Adept, and we have Oracles. So it's nice that I get a slight buff, I think.
If you would have to choose between, let's say, like 2 of those 3 changes that are proposed, they have to go through. Which is the one that you would say, like, they really shouldn't do this? The Queen range? Is that the one that you protect, or the baneling HP?
Sorry, me?
Yeah.
I think the baneling one just misses the mark. So I would not use that one, because it literally affects the matchup that they want to keep the same more than the one that they want to change. Like, instead they could make banelings with +2 not one-shot probes anymore, or something that would then specifically be against Protoss or something like that. But instead they do something that, like, Marines will take one last shot, and that kind of happens quite often.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I would not go with the Queen one. And also I think the Crypto one is pretty interesting, because they talked about Oracles and stuff, but I think with the depths especially.
Yeah, I mean that one's absolutely primarily for Hellions, right? Not really PvZ PvZ so much.
Yeah, I think it's mostly Hellions and Adepts maybe a little bit. But
I mean, it will make them 3-shot, right? Instead of
yeah, and
6.
I mean, it's basically just you can't put them in front of a Adept anymore, because it goes up, right?
Yeah, but also with the added Oracle change, it's actually kind of nice to deny creep in mid game, I think.
Right.
So I think there is some value to that, but it might be too weak against Terran. That could be the case.
Now, this question goes for all of you, and whoever wants to speak for us, go ahead. Is there one thing that was truly missing when you guys read these patch notes and you're like, I can't believe they still haven't addressed X, Y, or Z?
I think they had so we all get a document which we sign an NDA for. So I'm not sure if I can say this, but there was a change in there.
Risky.
We're walking on the edge, but I thought this change was very interesting. Where they said the main problem for PvZ, at least I think a big problem, is that Bane Harass might be a little strong with +2. Is that they can one-shot probes, they 2-shot Templar. That feels a little much sometimes. And they had a change where if you get either one armor upgrade or one shield upgrade, that Banelings don't 2-shot anymore. So then Toss could play +1 into then whatever armor upgrade you want, and Banes wouldn't 2-shot anymore. I thought that was a very elegant change that, once again, very specific. I think that one really hit the mark, and I liked it. And especially now that I think most people realize that nerfing the Baneling HP doesn't quite do what we hoped it would do in PvZ. I think it's an elegant change that is not as big, and I think kind of hits the target.
Benjamin, is there anything you'd love to see? I know you've been frustrated about the TVP matchup. I don't know if it's economically behind or what it is, but I've heard you complain, so go ahead. The floor is yours.
I am bad against Protoss, which I will not deny, and I rely way too much on all-ins right now. But I would like there to be a little bit more variety, because I do feel that Protoss can pretty much go down most tech avenues against Terran, and depending on map, it's not necessarily a wrong choice, whereas I do feel very much tunneled into doing one thing and one thing only. For example, like when I saw TY go mech, which I was like, nah, he can't go mech, and he made it work, but I do feel Dia kind of didn't really know how to handle it. Maybe I'm just hoping for too much in regards to hoping that mech can be viable against Protoss, or at least like without Protoss making big mistakes. But I'm interested in the Widowmine change, because every time Widowmine invisibility is kind of suggested, I'm always like, how is that going to come into effect? And I mean, it's definitely going to be a more annoying. Like, our Widowmine's going to come randomly start dotting around the field way earlier, and that kind of stuff. And it allows Terran to have a bit of vision, kind of using them like vision tools as well. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, I'm looking forward to see what happens. I think the creep, if they nerf creep like that again, I think that's a bit too much, because having 4 Hellions go out and just like one-shot creep tumors might be a bit crazy, but
Well, I mean, it's not the end of the world, is it, Ben?
no, I mean,
Well-
one down, 150 to go, you know.
All right, Funka, any final thoughts about balance before we hop into the viewer questions?
Well, Roddy, I can't believe they still haven't addressed the bunker building time. I think it's been a long time since they've changed it, and they touched a little bit about it. No, memes aside, I had a lot of problems as like a player, but even though I'm not playing that much these days, just to avoid frustration in general. But I was just frustrated with Zerg. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like it's been a huge topic of frustration for me for the last year and a half, and I felt like for the longest time they just didn't touch what, in my opinion, was a problem with the race, which was like the all powerness or whatever. It's not even a sentence, but the fact that the Queen was like an answer to a lot of stuff, and I feel like they are slowly going towards that. Like, let's trickle down on the range, maybe the range buff that we gave earlier because of the leap range and whatever it was for. So they're talking about that. I don't know if they need to go through with it, but I do believe that the unit needs to be addressed a little bit. Creep, I thought there was like, for a million years they should have changed it or changed a little bit about it. What they did in the earlier patch was already pretty decent. Do we need to go further? I'm not entirely sure, but they're still addressing the fact that creep is all powerful in ZVT, and we need to do something about it a little bit once again. Banelings, I don't know. Like, banelings are such a weird unit. Like, in my opinion, they can do so much and they can be so garbage at the same time. So it's like, maybe you want to address the fact that it's 0.5 supply and it can make a lot of difference in a battle. But I'm not sure if obviously if the 5 HP thing doesn't change anything about PvZ, just throw it out, right? Like, it's a garbage change, right? But I do think they addressed most of what makes sometimes like a matchup with a Zerg feel a little bit weird or frustrating, at least for me or Terran players in general, which is Queens, Creep, and yeah, maybe Baneling, but especially Queen and Creep, which is like vision all around, right? Like vision and defensive tools. So I'm liking those changes in general.
Alrighty. Well, actually, before we go into Q&A, real quick, Lambo, nobody really talks about the potential Phoenix against Queens if Queens lose a range. Is that something you're a tiny bit concerned about, or you're like, nah, I know how to take care of Phoenix builds?
Like, in general, as a Zerg against Provost and Terran, you just fight against air units, so I didn't specifically think about the Phoenix. I think it's going to affect pretty much every single opener. Like, literally every, like, I was more concerned about defending Icon. Like, Icon drops might become a little bit better again now, like all that kind of stuff. I personally hate playing against Muta and ZVZ, so that's one thing that I was worried about, but I think the Queen has way too much range, so like, it's design-wise just not that great of a unit, so I like the change overall.
Okay, I did think of something that annoys me to no end. And I remember thinking about the Showtime Gabe series that they had at Katowice.
Yeah.
That kind of got settled by, one disruptor shot landing. And I know that was a really, really sick series, like, no doubt about it. And it would have been sick regardless. But I do wish that Terran had some more ways of countering disruptors with it being kind of enjoyable, as opposed to kind of transition to Liberators and then like Tempest being the counter to that, and then like this Viking.
All right, Kev, I'll give you the word. We don't go into the Patreon Q&A yet. I see a very confused Protoss on my screen.
Well, it's the disruptor. It's a bit weird because it does feel like it's just kind of dodgeball for the Terran, except Terran doesn't really get any balls. So it's like this one guy. So it's a bit lame. I agree, and I think Ben is also right in that the Liberator is kind of the counter to it, especially in higher numbers. I frowned a bit at the Tempest. I don't think at the highest level of play we see a lot of late game Tempest situations where it's like, wow, that's really a big counter to the Liberator. I think most tosses tend to stray away from Tempest at this moment, tend to go more into the Blink DT route. That was my only problem with what he was saying. But I agree. If there was a way to make that whole interaction with the Disruptor and Liberator more enjoyable, I think that'd just be healthy for the game.
Do you guys?
Yeah, so I was thinking about even things like EMP, like actually on the projectiles coming, like if there was a potential for EMPs to land on them, like if you got it on the center kind of thing. So there was like some extra actions being placed that wasn't necessarily like, oh, I just have to run away every time. I think that would also be kind of interesting. And also, say if we did see 6 disruptor shots land or coming to land and it's like boom, 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 boom. I think that kind of thing could potentially make TVP a little bit more interesting when it comes to that kind of scenario. But that was just me spitballing.
Do you guys remember how the Disruptor was when it first got introduced? It was a ball, and then you could basically click the Purificated Nova, and it would just speed up, and then the ball just runs forward into the army, and it would just explode. So it's kind of like a baneling. It was a one-time use, but it was really good. It was really big, and it would just speeds into an army and explode.
You mean during Legacy's beta?
Yeah.
Okay, I can't remember that. Like,
Yeah,
I remember the early PvPs, like the ping pong games, like Stalker, Blink Stalker, Disruptor. I casted so many games of you. Like, you played like an entire game for like 10 minutes, and you're like basically just shooting Disruptor balls and blinking out. That was the craziest era.
It was good though, wasn't it, to watch?
From a spectator's point of view,
it was great to watch.
It was pretty cool to watch. Maybe just a little bit too much. Like sometimes just the games wouldn't end, which was a little bit annoying. But the tension, man.
Yeah, the tension was good. It was PvP. Like I had so many discussions specifically with Drogo about this as well.
Yeah.
Because he hates disruptors, and every time we're at any balance meeting, it's always the first thing I bring up. Like, hey, what about that PvP Blink Disruptor, boys? Can we perhaps have a way to make it, get that back into the game? And Drogo immediately gets red and starts flaming me. It's like, yeah, I think that era of PvP was so good. Like it was super tense. And the one thing that I enjoyed about it was that I could be playing against someone that's like 6k, and he would have 7 disruptors, and I'd have 2 disruptors. And I'd still know that with just good micro and very good decisions, I could come back in the game. And now if I'm playing a PvP and I'm down like 4 probes in the early game, and he moves into me with Archons, like it's going to be a rough time. And that's 65 points down the drain. So yeah, that's the one thing that I kind of miss a bit in PvP, but the battery change helps that a bit. So that's nice.
Maybe we'll see the comeback of the Disruptor with the battery change. All right, guys, we have been going for 2 hours and 20 minutes. Well, a little bit less. Let's go ahead and hop into the Patreon Q&A, where I know we have a couple of very familiar faces, and some of them I'm happy to see, some of them a little bit less. Are we going to start off with a troll question? No, apparently we're not going to start off with a troll question, so let me just make sure that I get this straight, guys. Episode 92. I guess a lot of these questions are addressed to all of us, unless I say something specific. So if you guys feel strongly about it, feel free to speak up. And if you're not interested in the question, feel free to stay silent. First question is by Sergeant Blano. Of course, first of all, thank you very much for supporting the Pylon show. What unit would you like to see or would just be curious to see brought into SC2 from Brood War? For example, I'd love to see the Science Vessel brought over, even if it meant replacing the Raven.
Part of the question. Personally, that's getting better these days because the Raven kind of makes more sense, like for the last couple of years with the changes and everything. But I used to hate the Raven. Like, it's like this clunky unit that costs 1 million freaking gas and gets destroyed by basically anything from the other player. I used to hate it, and I think like they made it a better unit. But back then, I kind of remember myself like yelling on my stream, tilting like always, saying that I would like the Science Vessel instead of the Raven. That I thought like lacked the charisma and the utility of the Science Vessel. So that would be it for me.
Ben, I know you've played a fair bit of Brood War. Is there one thing you'd really love to see?
Yeah, if I could have vultures, that'd be pretty imbalanced, but also pretty awesome.
All right, Kev, Lambo, nothing? No interest? All right, thank you very much, Sergeant Blano, for your support and the question. Next question, and I think this is going to be a good one. I think you guys will feel quite opinionated about this. Nimzo asks, Do you think pro players have a responsibility when it comes to balance whine? ? There is a tendency that streamers that balance whine or complain a lot have a fan base that mimic their behavior. The toxicity in chat in the cast stream, for example, gay plays versus when Harstem. Question is phrased a little weird, guys. I'm just reading it. Plays seems huge. So that's it, kind of. Like, the question wasn't formed properly, but I think we get the question. Do you guys think that streamers have a responsibility about whining?
Yeah, to some degree.
Yeah, but I think there's not that much wrong. Like, if you're in the moment and you're getting triggered by like 12 zealots getting warped into your base, it's fine to say, man, this is completely broken, you know? In the moment, we all get kind of angry at stuff. Like, if I get Bane busted and I barely miss the Banelings morphing, I'm like, oh, geez, this race is completely insane, you know? Just after the moment, I think it's more fine that if you go on a 45-minute rant explaining in detail why a race is broken, I think it's a little different, and that creates like a different atmosphere as well in the stream. I'm not sure if that also goes over to the games that are casted on different streams, but I mean, you see a difference in people's chats, like what is tolerated, what's not. And I prefer being like speaking not too much about balance like that. And I know there's people that prefer to speak more about balance. And yeah, I mean, it's your stream, you can do what you want, but it might be not too great for the, you know, the overall mood of the people watching and the way they feel about the balance.
Lambo, do you feel you have a responsibility when you're live?
No, I think I can do whatever I want. That being said, I do have like balance completely banned from my chat. Like balance discussions, I think are just not very fruitful, and I also don't think they're good for the mood of the stream. I also think a lot of streamers talking about it also enables some people that then proceed to go to the forums that player A and B said that this matchup is completely broken, and because they're in their Diamond League and they're struggling with the same, they obviously believe him. And I mean, I honestly think it's fine. I think some people could tone it down just a little bit, but like every streamer can do whatever he wants, in my opinion.
Funka, you feel strong about this, or?
Yeah, I honestly totally agree with Lambo. I mean, sometimes, like, if you take a little bit of perspective, you're like, oh, maybe he's, you know, he goes a little bit overboard with this or that balance discussion or that topic especially. But once again, they can do basically whatever they want, and yeah, they'll have a little bit of responsibility. If you go super, you zoom out a lot and you think about, you know, the responsibility towards the scene, then maybe there is a little bit of responsibility. But you can do whatever you want. People vent differently, you know. So sometimes people have to vocalize or at least say it out loud to, you know, get it out of their system. And obviously this is going to have an effect on themselves, right? Like if you balance whine all the time, then maybe you'll have problem to fix your issue in whatever matchup. So I guess, yes, they've got responsibility, but they're also sometimes like, punishing themselves, and they can't, you know. So basically what I mean is just like, yes, responsibility if you want, but they can do whatever they want on their stream, and sometimes it's going to be bad for themselves, like just balance whining. So it all goes in a circle. Like there is no perfect answer to this. It's just vent whatever you want, man.
I don't mind answering it real quick as well. Like, I personally have no issue with what, like, stuff that Kev said. I think it's all about context. Let's say there is a warp prism that flies in your main, it warps in 8 zealots. If somebody says, like, man, I hate this bullshit, like, I would never have an issue with this. I don't think that's wrong. Or, you know, you lose against queens running to the SI map. Oh, this unit is bullshit. Like, I think that's fine. Everybody gets a little upset in the heat of the moment. What I personally hate the most, and especially I think if you carry some sort of a role in the StarCraft scene as well, is when you go on rants about how the game sucks, how this game is just terrible, how everything about the game sucks, and blah. Like that, I personally think goes way too far, and I didn't think that should be taking place. For somebody who makes a living out of StarCraft 2, I think that goes too far. Whether you're a player or, you know, a community member, it doesn't matter. I personally hate that stuff, but I think a little bit of balance, you know, everybody has a favorite matchup, everybody has a matchup they like, as long as you keep it, you know, somewhat lightly, and like, okay, we're all frustrated, this stuff happens, as long as we move on and we don't get stuck into these insane rants. I think, you know, a little bit of feistiness, a little bit of spice, there's nothing wrong with that. Next question by Ravi Parikh, Fear Dragon. Hi Artosis, I'm a big fan. Is it possible for me to attend the GSL despite being able despite being a big fan, ? I hear Koreans are superstitious about fans sucking the air out of a room, so I'm not sure if I'm welcoming Korea. Thanks, big fan.
Next
I've got
question.
nothing, guys. I've got nothing. Thank you,
All right.
Thank you, Ravi, for supporting the violent ship. Hot Cups is asking us, what do you think about scaling baneling damage according to health? For example, a bane that is in the red might do 50% damage. Banes would still require response, but a successful storm would mitigate damage even if the Banes survived. Or maybe this will just end up buffing Splash? ? Love you. Lambo.
Yeah, that would be too much. That would be not a good change. I think that banelings before they connect most of the time take a hit of something, and then that would snowball so much into the actual damage output of the banelings that I think it would be way too much.
Ben, how would you like that? A baneling with 5 HP only doing 5 damage?
So I think it's an interesting idea, but I also think that StarCraft 2 is already complicated enough that if you start adding things like, oh, why is that unit only doing that amount of damage? And it's like, well, at that fraction of a health, it does less, blah, 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 blah. I remember when Snoot started coming up with ideas for Nidus Worm unloading different units at different rates and, having weird interactions. And I was just like, StarCraft 2 is already beautifully complex. Let's not overcomplicate things because, we don't want to ward off new viewers as well.
Alrighty. I think you guys answered that well. I think Funka and Kev are okay with these answers. So the next question is asked by Nachtcup. Could you please explain StarCraft Brood War damage types? You have done a good job in explaining what kills what in ASK/KSL. I still don't understand the damage types and their resistance/vulnerabilities, however. Funka, you love Brood War, mate. Talk to me about the different types of attack in Brood War.
So that's the messed up thing, because I'm not entirely sure, because Brood War is from an era of gaming where some of those rules are not explained, right? Like in Warcraft 3, it would have been super easy to answer that question, right? Because you've got heroic damage and whatever it's called in English, but against buildings, against light armor, against no armor, stuff like that. In Brood War, what I do understand, what I do believe is the answer is units have different sizes, and units just do different damage to different sizes of units, basically. So you've got small, you've got medium, and you've got large units, and they don't take the same kind of damage. I don't know if this is a type of attack. I think it's connected to this unit is going to do X amount of damage against small units, medium, and large units. That's basically how it's done, I think. So basically, Zealots don't take the full damage of a tank, of a siege tank in TVP, 100%. Zerglings, I do believe, take full damage, and big units take full damage as well. So that's basically why you want Vultures to fight off against Zealots and stuff like that. So basically, I think it has to do with the size. But once again, don't quote me on this. I haven't gone into details for a long time.
I think you did better than the rest of us could have over here, Funka. Thank you very much. Artosis is going to be very sad about this, but try again next week and you'll get a much better answer from Dan, who knows everything about it.
He's going to send an angry DM to me. It's like, what the hell did you say on my show?
I think you did good, Funka. You did a lot better than I ever would. Sorry, Knock-Up. That's the best we can do over here. We all play StarCraft 2. Next up, we had Lightning Lin, basically saying that they are uploading StarCraft drawings, and you guys can take a look at them at deviantart.com/Zaubergarden. So not too much of a question, but if you guys are interested in some StarCraft drawings, take a look at deviantart.com/ZAUBERGARDEN, Zaubergarden. Take a look at beautiful StarCraft drawings. Thank you very much for supporting the Pylon Show. Next up, Hyper Turtle. Has there ever been I like this question, by the way. I think we'll get some cool answers out of this one. So Hyper Turtle is asking us, has there ever been a strategy or micro technique that you knew wasn't worth learning, but you invested a lot of time into just to prove that you could pull it off? Lambo.
I'm trying to think. The only thing that comes to mind is I learned how to use the Oracle double shot purely to show the Protoss players that it's actually quite easy to do. But that's the only reason I learned to do it. The only other thing that comes to my mind is that I can keep loading up and dropping queens from one overlord without the overlord stopping. So that was for the one all-in against Terran, so you could shoot the Banshee. That didn't really take long to learn, though. That was like, I just tried it, and it actually was really easy. So, not really, besides those two.
Harstem, I see you frowning.
I was thinking of the mind dodging with the Adept. I spent a disproportionately large amount of time on that, especially for how bad I still am at it. So you shade, and then at the last second, like I recall that you go in as the bar is at the right side of the A. You go into range, and then it usually is fine. But sometimes I go in slightly too fast or slightly too late, and I lose it, or nothing happens. And so I kind of gave up on trying that too hard. But sometimes if I'm feeling really good, I'll do it. It never works.
Benjamin, I know that you were a big fan of the marine split challenges and stuff, so you must have a little story about this.
Yeah, instead of learning to split, I should have just learned Protoss, man. Like, that shit seems a lot of fun.
Is there anything else that you feel like you spend a lot of time on that you're like, okay, I'm really good at this, but it's kind of useless?
For a while, I felt that I was really good at trying to kill an Adept with just a Reaper without it being able to hit you. But it requires a lot of effort, and it's absolutely not worth it.
700 minerals in the bank, but Reaper went about the Adept.
Yeah, I was pulling a happy, you know, like focusing so much on one thing and just not macroing at all.
Funka, do you have any good stories for us?
Yeah, I did try especially the KD8 usage of of the Reaper. Well, as the Adept comes in to dodge the third shot, never happened in a proper game. Like, I did it a couple of times, like trying it out, but never happened in a proper game. I guess maybe the most frustrating thing in a way, because I felt like it was coming because it was a little bit too strong, but the tank evac micro, man. Like, we had to figure out a lot of different things, right? Like, change the hotkeys and change the way you set up fights, especially in TVT, because of the tank evac. And I was like, this thing is gone. Like, it's never gonna last. But we had to do it for an entire year, I believe. We had to figure out how to do this and like change all the hotkeys and everything to feel comfortable with it, and then it was gone. So that looked like a lot of time and a lot of mechanical thinking going into the drain, but that kind of stuff happens, man.
All right, thanks, guys. Thank you, Hyper Turtle. Next question is by Stay at Zero. And guys, pay close attention. This is a Pylon show classic. A magic Jenny appears, but it's a mean Jenny. Oh no. He gives you a cursed choice. You must choose. A, you must change all your passwords for everything, all unique, and you can change them back. Or B, your next 100 ladder games, main account, you will 100% not see the first drop your opponent does. All right, who wants to go first?
B.
A, I don't think it's that hard to change passwords.
Everything and not change them back?
100 unique passwords?
Yeah, should be fine.
All right.
So, a different password for absolutely everything that you have.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do anyway.
Yeah, it's praying over there.
It's unbelievable, Ben.
I literally already have A, so I'm like, yeah.
But you guys use keyloggers then and stuff.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
I think like the idea of this question is that you must remember all of them.
No, you use a formula. Like, you can use a formula, and then it's difficult to explain. I read a book about it once.
You read a book about how to set up your passwords?
No, the book's called How to Organize Your Life, I think, and it also a part about passwords. They had some good tips in there, so that's how you're supposed to do the passwords. You have like a formula, and then you add something new, and it works pretty well. So I don't think I have much issue with that.
Good. Funka?
Well, I guess Demuslem and I are on the same page, man. Like, B right away. Like, I would be completely lost and unproductive for like a week if I had to do A. So, not a chance.
Like 100 drops in a row? Like, frick, I'll get that out the way in like 3 days, you know?
Yeah. Well, most people in the chat say, like, I choose B because it doesn't change anything from my usual game.
Yeah, pretty much, actually.
Those guys are smart.
Okay. Very divided. Next question is by Aaron McLeod. Rotterdam. If you were a sentient cheesecake, ... Just kidding. Good. This goes back to a hot dog question a long time ago. It's really weird. But anyway, actual question. Since a lot of you are playing Warcraft 3, I'm curious of your overall thoughts. Are people overreacting to lack of features coming out? Network issues? Question mark. Or is it rough going? Question mark. Are you having fun playing it again? Question mark. Keep safe. Obviously, Ben, you're the one who's playing the most Warcraft out of all of us. Talk to us. Are people exaggerating, or is it indeed pretty messed up?
It definitely is messed up. Yeah, for those that don't know, and I guess that's you guys here as well. Blizzard released Reforged, and it had a lot of features that were absolutely missing. So I know both Kevins here played it, and like I was always a massive fan when I was a kid. You know, I'd load up a channel, I'd see people with icons and levels, and it's like, oh my god, like they actually changed all that. And so the chat channels are much more like StarCraft 2, where to me it's like redundant, you know, going to a channel and feeling cool and seeing people is just gone. And right now, like there's still no actual ladder for it, which to me blows my mind because it's been out for a while now. But there is one guy that's like a coder / programmer called Pad that's actually gone about doing so much for Warcraft 3 single-handedly. Like he's made his own ladder that everybody uses now. It's got like statistics, it's got web pages, it will show you your best matchup in each like, you know, map-based stuff versus each. It's got stuff that StarCraft 2 doesn't have still. He's also got like an overlay for streamers and players that goes in game to show you like who your opponent is, what his stats are in the game, and it will show you as you're playing the game and stuff. So there's like he's single-handedly carrying Warcraft 3. I mean, they're trying to work on stuff apparently, like making the graphics less shit than they are, because like honestly, it was a total mess. But honestly, yeah, the guy called Paddy's carrying Warcraft 3 single-handedly pretty much. But yeah, Blizzard definitely dropped the ball on that one.
Yeah, I obviously agree. Like, I've been following all of it. I don't play that much, but I don't think people are exaggerating. If anything, they're underreacting. Like, it's fantastic that someone like Pat is doing all of these things, but it's also really sad that one individual has to make a ladder for a game that had a perfectly fine functioning ladder 20 years ago. Like, I mean, obviously, I love everything that Blizzard has ever done for me, but that's just insane. Like, you can't justify that. Come on, man. Like, we had that stuff literally 20 years ago.
Yeah, like they've actually taken steps back as opposed to gone forward, and they outsourced the graphics, which you know Blizzard is known for doing cool cinematics and cool graphics and stuff, and they gave it to somebody else to do, and they like.
And it doesn't feel Blizzardy, like, right?
No, not at all. And it's like everybody just uses classic graphics. Like that's when you know that you've kind of fucked up. Like I gotta thank Blizzard for giving people the option to use either the updated graphics or the old graphics, because if it was just the new graphics, I think they would have like straight up killed the game. But yeah, like the Pad guy, he actually applied to work for Blizzard, and I think he would have like single-handedly, you know, done all this, and then it would have actually made Blizzard look good. But Blizzard rejected his application, kind of thing. And it's like, so not only is he single-handedly carrying Blizzard, and you know he's not really asking for much, but Blizzard said no to him as well, even though, yeah, the whole thing it just leaves a sour taste in my mouth.
Well, I think you pretty much covered it. Funka, something you want to say?
Well, I'm just gonna go ahead and basically paraphrase what you guys just said. Like I'm literally mad. I'm super freaking mad about with Blizzard on this one. Like it doesn't make any sense to me. Like I'm a huge Blizzard nerd since I'm a kid. I played every single game, even though WoW was not my cup of tea. I played every single one of them, and I'm like a huge fan of the company, and I know I owe them a lot, right? Like in terms of who I am as a human being, and professionally, they added so much to my life, and I'm really grateful for that. But I'm also super freaking mad because this is a travesty. Like there's nothing going well with this game. And when Reforged came out, I was so happy playing playing again this game that I played years and years, thousands of games. That was like the first proper like online game that I competed on, right? Like trying to farm the ladder and go as high as possible and do some clan wars and stuff like that. And then 15 years later, they offer me a game that I'm still paying, and that's literally not functioning, doesn't have anything, all of what you guys said, and I just don't understand how it's possible. And I don't understand that we are now like the 7th of May and it's still no ladder. Like I literally said, and I played a lot of on stream when the game came out. I was like, oh, I'm enjoying myself playing some 1v1 fucking Warcraft 3 games. I'm so happy about it, and I just stopped playing because I was so frustrated with it, and I was like, I'm not gonna launch this game again until there is a ladder, until there is a like the easiest thing and the first thing you ask from a competitive game online. Like what the F is happening? Like it doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm super freaking mad, and I hope Blizzard does something, because this is not normal that one guy is carrying hard like this, and that people are using the previous graphics, that the publicity about the game has been a lie, because most of what they said they would do, they didn't do. And I don't give a shit, because I'm not going to be playing the campaign, right? But for people that bought the game for the campaign, obviously I'd be mad and ask for a refund. Like I don't know, like it's just weird for me. It's just weird and super frustrating and annoying and makes me mad. And I hope Blizzard like here's what the fan are saying, which is your games are amazing. The gameplay of Warcraft 3 is amazing, and I was a huge advocate on OGaming. Like guys, I know you're StarCraft 2 players and you're StarCraft 2 viewers, but Warcraft 3 is super cool. There's so much to it. It's so cool to play. The feeling of the game, the gameplay, the core gameplay is so good. But then they have to launch this piece of shit game. Obviously, they're not going to play it. Like, it makes me so mad. So I hope they do something, honestly.
Well, I think you guys covered it pretty well. But Kev, I know you also played some Warcraft real quick. Is there something you'd like to add?
No. I think they covered pretty much like pretty much the same as Funka. Like I wasn't as good as you guys, so yeah, I played a couple of games and was glad to be back. But then after like desync a couple of times, I think the first week, like I tried like 25 games and I got to play 2 of them against terrible players. I was like, well, I think I'm just going back to StarCraft.
Yeah, I had the same experience. To sum it up real quick, it's funny that you said this, Funka, because I said the exact same thing. Whenever they fix everything that I want, like a normal ladder, I'll start playing again. And now it's months later, and I still haven't played because they haven't fixed it yet. But it just makes me sad. Above all, it makes me sad. I really thought that they have learned from the mistakes they made when they released Remastered, right? Like they did Remastered first, and I was like, man, it's really messed up for all the Brood War fans. They made so many mistakes. And it seems like they fixed most things actually in Remastered, like a month or 2 or 3 later, which is still a terrible shame because Brood War deserved better. But I was like, hey, Blizzard learned from this. Now Reforged, they got all of this right from day one, and we'll have another thriving RTS. And there's a lot of people working very hard on making Warcraft 3 esports possible. But it's sad that they did even worse than they did with Remastered. And that's just, to me, that's mind-boggling. Like, how do you not learn from those errors you've made before?
Possible.
And it's also ridiculously sad because people like ESL are so committed. They've like done a 3-year deal. Like you've got so many people that are committed to this now, and Blizzard have fucked it up so hard. Like that online play and getting people like cross continents and stuff. You can't even use Battle.net. Like you can't you can't even use the program that they. And the fact that they're kind of forced to use Battle.net, and then you have like you have a LAN like Dreamhack. And it gets to, we were at Katowice when Dreamhack was happening, the Anaheim event, and Forzane desyncs twice in a row against Boone. And apparently there was like 8 desyncs throughout the tournament as well. There's no rejoin function still. Like they haven't updated anything. It all just got worse. And that's the sad bit, right? Like that it's just worse than it was. And when I spoke to people at BlizzCon about it, like Blizzard people, and I was like, we played the beta, and I think you tried the beta as well, Kev. Like it was shit. Like it all looked terrible. Like and it felt clunky. Like units would go up and hit something, but like they wouldn't have any animation and like no sound. And it was like, oh dear. Like, and I remember speaking to them, and they'd be like, oh, it's great, isn't it? And I'm like, no, like it is horrible. Like, what are you doing? And like they were all kind of like, oh well, we haven't had this feedback, but everywhere I looked, there was that feedback. So I have zero idea where the fuck they look. It feels very much like they bury their heads in the sand. They all tell each other, "Great job, man, great job," but they don't actually listen to anybody of the people that like really
I think there is a lot more to it than that. I think a lot of people definitely do know where it went wrong, but I think they were maybe limited on time, and maybe orders were given from above to just get this game out. I do think that's one thing that's important to mention is when people say oh, poor ESL committed to the deal. I do think people have to understand that this is a business deal, right? ESL is not running the Pro Tour for StarCraft and Warcraft out of charity. That's still Blizzard supporting this. If Blizzard wouldn't make an offer and wouldn't pay, then those things, I mean, ESL would probably still do stuff, but that wouldn't be on the same scale. So for all the things that people dislike about Blizzard, they are still supporting our esports, and I do think that's important to mention, because without them, and that goes for Korean esports as well, by the way. I know a lot of people always think that has nothing to do with Blizzard, but it has a lot to do with Blizzard. Anyways, TLDR is we are sad about what happened to Warcraft. We hope it gets better. The game deserves better. The Warcraft 3 community deserves better. Next up, Kilo. What's your guy's favorite ice cream? Also, what kind of content would you like to see more of? All right, real quick. Favorite ice cream, Funka.
Coffee.
Lambo.
Maracuja.
Harstem.
Yogurt and boss fruits. What you call it? Forest fruits. Yeah.
Benjamin.
Kind of like pistachio.
Me too, Ben. Good call.
Yeah.
I also like just a Magnum almond or something, like Magnums are good.
Yeah.
And also quickly, what kind of content would you like to see more of?
Okay, one thing that I thought was really cool a long time ago when I first saw it, and was you remember when Caldor had those little YouTube videos of like keyboard perspectives and stuff?
Yeah.
I've always found those kind of videos like really interesting, or when tournaments show that kind of stuff. And yeah, I remember seeing like a beastie YouTube video of Maru, and like it is finding that kind of stuff is so hard to like actually get your hands on, and like seeing how these players use their gear and stuff and what they do and how fast they are. And I think that's something that we sometimes lose in StarCraft, is just how fast and accurate and good these players are, and how much they look at and stuff, and how they actually use their hands. So yeah, I always enjoy seeing that stuff. I'd like to see more of that.
I would say to go along what Ben was saying. I don't know if that counts as content per se, but I think as Ben said, like looking at the ends of a player is already pretty impressive. But I feel like if we could add like proper first-person view in every single tournament, like we could use that, like people would understand how precise you have to be and how hard it is to pull off. Like I always go back, if you remember, and I think Roddy, you know where I'm going with this, with the classic Maru versus Jaedong at BlizzCon, I think 2013, where he splits Marines and his Thor and his blah 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 against a massive army of Jaedong, and we can see it first person. And I think like lots of people that just don't know about esports, don't know about StarCraft, and I had that situation a couple of times in my life where people are like, well, everybody can do that, right? Like everybody can play this game of GSL. I'm like, dude, no. Like there's literally probably, I don't know, like 20-25% that can do like what Maru just did, maybe less. But those guys don't understand because they see it from, far above and cast it and everything. So they don't have any idea of how hard it is to actually micro those units. So first person, I think, like adds a lot of layers to the understanding of how good those players are. So first person would be nice.
I mean, Maru does stream every now and then, guys, but by the time you tune in, he's done. So, it's always 2 or 3 games. It's like, Maru's live, and we missed it. Like, that's pretty much how it goes. I do agree. I'll never forget the global finals between Beyond and Dark, and I just watched first-person view. I think I watched Dark, actually. First, I watched Beyond, and I was like, okay, he's sick. And then I watched Dark when I thought he was losing for so long, and I was like, how is he doing this? Like, I was starting to get a headache, and I felt dizzy by the time I watched, like, the King Sejong game or something. I was like, it's unreal, like, what they're doing. So I definitely do think, especially for big events, it can add a bit. What I personally miss, by the way, Ben, you just went over statistics real quick, right? I hate that the stats in our StarCraft 2 profiles are still so lame. Like, why don't I see who's my biggest rival? Why don't I see who I have beat the most on ladder? Like, I see my win rates against races, right? That's really cool. But what I want to see is how often do I beat Zerg when the Zerg is MMR above me, right? Like, those are numbers that I find interesting. I don't care that I'm 65% against Zerg. I want to see how I've done against the Zergs that are within 200 MMR of me. Because sometimes you have 25 games against Terran and you win 23 of them, but you beat up players that were 700 MMR underneath you. Those numbers mean nothing. And the numbers could mean something if they would just put a little bit of time and effort into it and make it better. That's what I missed.
And I mean, if they were more specific too, like I could see, so I get to see what my win ratio on a map is, but not via races. So it's like, oh, I'm good on that map, I think, but
Exactly.
it just turns out that I played like mirror all the time on it. But yeah, I mean that's stuff that could be way freaking better. You could really narrow down on certain things, and I mean, maybe it's not a big deal to some people, but to me, and with the amount of info that I have, like I have thousands of games recorded, that stuff would be really cool.
Yep, I find stats fun, and I really feel like we can do so much with the stats that StarCraft 2 has, and I don't even think we're asking for much when we put in those kind of requests, right? For a video game in 2020, I think that should be possible. But anyways, we're moving on, guys. Some drunk Canadian is asking, shameless plug, if you won the winner chicken dinner tournament or the pizza pie bi-weekly, what would you order? Sending much love from the home of the 94 and 2011 Stanley Cup Riots, Vancouver. All right, Funka, what would you order?
I think Lambo had
Yeah.
an idea of content he would like to see. So
Absolutely. I would order pizza, but I wanted to say to the point before, I would love to see some more Archon stuff because we've been playing Archon again lately, and it's so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think a real proper good Archon game has ever been like casted in such a long time. Like we're just playing again, and even like 3 versus 3. I think in a couple of days I'm gonna organize just a game with Cyril, Rainer, Laser, and me against Clem, Soul. Harstem is gonna be on the Terran team, and Kelazur. So these games are insane to watch. Like there's action everywhere. It's insane to play. Like even just watching the perspective of the players is insane. But if you would cast it and if we would have tournaments of that, I think people would love it. Like honestly, I think people would absolutely love it. Obviously.
Okay. So I have a question for you then, Lambo, sorry, before you go on. Because Funka, I think you were there as well, right? We did the Archon tournament that was hosted by Red Bull in Washington, D.C. in 2015, 14, whatever it was. And out of all the Red Bull tournaments, that was my least favorite one. Like, I would even say it kind of sucked. And that's maybe also because of some, outside activities. But just overall, the games, it wasn't fun. People weren't getting excited over it. I felt like there wasn't enough practice that really went into it. And it felt that players that were good, for instance, MC, like he was going to win anyway, Archon or no Archon. So why do you think that is so different right now? Or why do you think that tournament failed back then?
Because the game evolved insanely hard. Now, if you actually play Archon and everyone has his role, you have basically perfect scouting with all the races, and you can see run-bys coming and stuff, so the games will never end fast. Like back then in the Archon tournaments, like Nidus were invulnerable, and there was some other stuff, like there were tank drops, and the Terrans would just micro the tank drops and then basically try to rush to that. So the games would look entirely different. Now, if you actually watch, like I have one on YouTube, and I know Harstem has one on YouTube as well. If you watch these games go on for very long, and there is like just constant action. Like we obviously didn't only get better, but we also understand the game way better now than then. I think it actually changed drastically. And I'm not saying we should put on some massive tournaments because I actually think players would participate for almost just for fun, but also even just for relatively little prize money, because it's actually super fun to play. It's also a lot more relaxing. You don't actually have to be super focused all the time yourself.
Okay. So more Archon.
It's interesting. Honestly, it's really cool that you mentioned that Lambo Harstem. I think that you guys are enjoying playing it because, like, it really felt like Archon was an amazing idea, and I think Blizzard was really helpful about it, right? Like they were like, "Oh, there's this new mode and everything, and it's gonna carry our 1v1s and everything because people don't feel comfortable playing 1v1s. But what about a 1v1 where you're not really alone and you're playing with another guy or another person in general? It's just." It felt like it was a miss in the end, like people didn't really play it. Then you could queue for like hours. I know a lot of people at Gaming played Archons a lot, and then they just couldn't find a game, right? And so that's good to see that now with the new meta, with the way the game has shifted, maybe Archon mode has an opportunity to be an interesting format to follow. But the thing is, if you look at it from an observer's point of view, you don't really know what anybody's doing. And that's the problem, I think. Like, if the overlay was a tiny bit better, so you could see which of the two players is selecting which units and what they're doing exactly, that would be a little bit better. Because usually you're casting a game with just a million things happening, but you don't really know who's responsible for those moves, which is kind of sad, I feel.
I actually think I have a decent solution for that. I think you could cast with 2 people in Discord, or with the teams in the Discord, and the caster
Yeah.
could just join the
Ah.
comms every now and then, so you can
Mm.
tune into that. Or I'm sure if you have an actual tournament, there could be a better way to do it. But I stream them a lot, and I put some on my YouTube, and people actually absolutely love watching even just the first person stuff, because it's not very high level, so we're like constantly flaming each other. Like we put one guy in charge of the bad manner, like we're talking crap on Soul's macro, like, well, here's our macro. Like it's really fun to play. I think it's really fun to watch, and it's like the main request I get basically either on YouTube, on Twitter, or on Twitch. It's like, hey, when are you guys playing Archon again? Like everyone absolutely loves it, and it's actually one of the most fun I had playing as well, because it's kind of the team game experience, but in a game that's actually good. So it's like absolutely perfect.
I gotta say, I feel a little bit bad about the some drunk Canadian, because that's how this question started off with. And then 7 minutes ago, Lambo was like, pizza, but Archon. So guys, maybe let's go back to our Patreon question. Funka, if you could choose chicken or pizza, what would you want?
Honestly, I would go for a cheeky kebab, man. I need my kebab fixed. That was the question, right? Like, what would I order? No,
Well,
was
I
it just
think you have to
chicken or
choose
pizza?
between chicken.
Oh, sorry,
Chicken
sorry,
Chicken or
sorry.
pizza, mate? Kebab.
Wait, pizza kebab, man. No, I'd go for chicken. Man. Between chicken and pizza, I would go for chicken. I thought it was anything I wanted.
Okay. Ben?
Ah, kebab. No, pizza.
You know what I mean, though.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, some drunk Canadian. Next up, we have Polly. Polly's asking us, if there is a 10th anniversary party happening for StarCraft 2 this year, how would you make it if you are in charge of that event? Honestly, if I was in charge, I'll answer it first. I would just host it. I'll schedule it for October, November, whatever it is. Maybe during BlizzCon, maybe a week before BlizzCon. But I think by then things will be taking place. I mean, you can already see that the sports are picking back up again a little bit. It's going to be hard to open that up to the public, of course, but I do believe that you can, if you can have football matches, if you can have an MMA event, by the time it's September, October, I'm pretty sure that you can host a StarCraft 2 invitational event as well. And
Yeah.
I would go with a mix between old community members, of course, the current active ones, even former Blizzard employees that helped and made this game great, and then a lot of pro players. And I would make it a very fun stream. That's what I would do. Funka?
What was the question again? I'm sorry, I wasn't paying
So
attention.
if there is a 10th anniversary party happening this year and you
yeah.
are in charge, how would you do it?
That's a good question. I'm not entirely sure. I know the last opportunity we had to, what was it, like the
Yeah, we were casting nationwide, so we weren't
yeah,
invited.
and I was pretty frustrated about it. So first of all, I would do it in a time slot that's open and that's not competing with another tournament, because last time that was pretty rough for us.
I know, that was actually kind of sad. It's like, wow, I got invited. I was like, I never got an email. Like, I feel like I did a lot too. They're like, no, you were casting nationwide, so we didn't even ask you. I was like, that's
yeah.
nice.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, I have nothing to add to that subject, honestly.
Benjamin, if you were the man in charge, how would you do it? How would you celebrate our beautiful game?
I've no idea, man. I'd rent out an island for us, and we'd actually go to an outdoor island event, because that
an outdoor island, yeah, like indoor islands are hard to find, man.
Well, we did find one in that
Island.
Home Story Cup 20. But like, if we actually went to a proper resort somewhere, because like, I mean, that was actually a really cool. Like, that was way better than I thought it was going to be, honestly. But yeah, something like that.
We can go back to tropical islands. That was pretty fun.
That was so sick.
Yeah. All right, Lambo, quickly, something special.
I don't know. If there was no Corona, maybe after Valencia, we all take a boat together to Ibiza, throw out the little party stream there together.
I don't know if we should really celebrate StarCraft at Ibiza, guys. Like, you can think of Silicon Valley, the Twitch offices, but I mean, Ibiza would be really cool, but I don't know if it's for this occasion. Kevin is like, well, Ibiza sounds good. Like,
I kind of like the idea. Like,
He's down.
more than you guys.
All right, guys, Ibiza it is. That's where we do the StarCraft 2 anniversary party. Next question by Alexander. As casters pros and caster pros, How do you feel about the smaller tournaments and sub-grandmaster tournaments? Do you ever join them on an alt no one knows to goof around with, ? Or something you used to do only in the old MMR days? And then another question about food, but let's answer this question first. You guys want to answer?
Sure. I mean, that's kind of illegal, no?
Yes,
But
absolutely.
I think if anyone would be doing that, I don't think they'd admit it here on the Pylon show. So, yeah, I never really played them because I just played regular tournaments. I don't think I ever played like limited tournaments before.
Mm-hmm. No, but for instance, you could answer, like, obviously, I totally agree with you that, like, smurfing is bullshit. Nobody should do that. If there is a tournament for Diamond League and you are, like, a Master League player or a Grandmaster League player and you're pretending to be Diamond to ruin that tournament, then a big fuck you to you, because I think that's really messed up. Let people have fun. But, for instance, this question started with smaller tournaments, and I do think that's cool because, you know, I actually play a lot in those smaller tournaments, you know, the $10 tournament scene, as I call it, where you meet Gerald and Christiana and Zugeliang every day. And I really appreciate those tournaments, you know, it's competitive. A lot of guys that are not good enough to mess with Harstem and Lambo, but they are good enough to mess with each other. You still watch pretty high-level StarCraft, right? These are, like, properly ranked Grandmaster League players. They're not the best, but I think they're really fun. So I truly appreciate those smaller tournaments. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add.
They're really important to the scene and to the ecosystem in general. The problem is people are usually, as viewers, they're expecting the best level. We had the discussion with WCS, well, EPT a little bit earlier. People want to see the best level, the best representation of StarCraft. So usually in terms of viewership, if you try to cast some of those tournaments, you would have to do something else. Like you would have to bring something else to the table than just casting the games, right? Like it could be educational. Like this is the reason this guy is not grandmasters yet, or something like that. But you would need to have like the legitimacy, I think it's called, to do it as a caster. So there's an issue with this. Like I'm truly grateful that those exists. But obviously, it's hard for us, like for instance, Ado Gaming, to cast those. Like that would be a waste of airtime in a way, because people would not be as interested. But they're really important and really pivotal in StarCraft still working, because the next big winners in big tournaments might come from those kind of tournaments. They might get their first competitive games in that aspect. So those are important.
To emphasize on what you said about the viewers not knowing these players, you know what's insane? Every single time I play B in a tournament, the entire chat is wondering why I'm playing Livy B and if I'm going to beat her. And I'm like, guys, B is not Livy B, okay? And it just keeps on happening. But like, you can have a match between, let's say, like Aquaron and Rodzin, right? Two good players in Europe. The entire chat will be like, what league are these guys? You know, and just saying that they're Grandmaster League isn't even fair, because they're not even just GM players. You know, they're really high up in GM. But to them, that's all the same. The bottom of NA GM, the bottom of, well, previous Australia GM, or Aquaron, who's like 6.3K on Europe. Are they Grandmaster League? Yes, they're in the same league. It's like, no, guys, that's not how it works. But the TLDR, I think I speak for all of us when I say that we appreciate those tournaments. It's good for guys to get tournament experience, even if they're not playing for a lot. That is a stepping stone towards those ESL Pro Tour events. So I think that's awesome. Then a follow-up question. If you guys want to answer it, go ahead. Sentient pizza, chicken, baguettes, or kebabs? Who wins?
Kebab.
All right.
It's a rough one, man. There's an argument to be made for the chicken baguette, Rotterdam. You know that.
There's no chicken baguette. It's chicken or baguette.
Yeah.
Chicken or baguettes, dude. I need those questions because I always like mess those up. Then kebabs, obviously.
Yeah, I agree. The chicken kebab could have been, or chicken baguette rather, could have been competitive there. Next question is by AA Run. TLDR's YouTube viewership has actually been fantastic so far. GSL group VODs have gotten really healthy view counts, and the live numbers are similar to Twitch. What do you guys think about SC2 esport viewership on YouTube? For reference, the GSL Round of 24 Group F got 160k views in a couple of days. Lambo, go ahead.
Sorry, I zoned out when you said AA Ron.
Yeah.
All right, Harstem.
A big shout out to my man AA Ron, first of all. That's a good name.
That's
you know where it's from, right, Kev, or not?
sounds. I mean, it's like Aaron, but it sounds. I don't know. It sounds familiar.
It's a substitute teacher video from Key and Peele, I believe.
Key
It's
and
really
Peele, man.
famous. Yeah,
What?
So good.
Okay, no, I have no idea.
Yeah. You gotta watch it after. But
You gotta watch it.
Yeah. For the question, wait, what was the exact question? What do you guys think about the SE2 esports viewership on YouTube?
Yeah.
I mean, YouTube is kind of different in that a lot of it is kind of directed by the algorithm in a way, and there's a lot of people that like StarCraft that click basically anything that comes their way, whether that's esports related or just high level games. And I think it's a little bit underused still, or a little bit underestimated by a lot of people who just watch Twitch. But there's actually a very, very big YouTube scene, I think, that just watch VODs of like tournaments and of absolutely everything. Like they just eat it up. Like no matter what level, no matter the league, basically, they want to watch more StarCraft and want to hear Loco talk about it.
And everyone's trying to get a piece of that pie right now. Piece of the Loco pie.
I do think there's one thing that's like really good about the YouTube player in general, though. It's like probably pretty hard for Twitch to like try and implement. But as you're watching the live video, you can literally just kind of like scroll back a little bit in case you miss something. I know you can go to the video and load it up on Twitch and stuff, but I really love that with the GSL video, because I'm like, oh, what build did he do? And it's like quickly go back and I'm like, aha. And then I go back again and it's like, it's actually really, really nice.
Yeah, the video live is indeed a bit better, but the chat is so much worse though. Like I do miss my Twitch
terrible,
chat. Yeah. But yeah, actually, to answer it as well, I'm a bit surprised that they're getting like 20k live viewership on YouTube, because Blizzard has said before, and other members of esports communities like Harstem, they reached out to us as well, or they have made posts in the past where they said like, man, like actually pretty disappointed, we got moved to YouTube, we weren't even aware of the fact that we were going to be moved to YouTube, and they had like a 70 to 80% decrease in viewership from Twitch. And it seems like once again StarCraft is kind of staying the same. People will find it. Maybe it's a different audience right now, but I actually think I have been positively surprised, at least. I don't know about you guys, but
it was weird for me though, because I don't think I ever really watched GSL VODs much on YouTube. But the first time it was on YouTube, the stream kept getting recommended to me while it was live, like on my main page every single time. So that might also have something to do with it, of course. Like it's actually kind of a big deal. So
yeah, no, I believe.
And of course we have a pretty good audience. But I think tournaments on YouTube before that we had didn't do quite as well. Like I think Pro League was on YouTube as well for a bit, no? Or am I completely off there? I feel like one of the tournaments was on YouTube before and it didn't do too hot. When it was not the Artosis casting, like the other guys, I can't remember.
Wolf and Doa back then, or Wolf and Calder.
I think it might have been
Brendan Valdez.
Moltrap.
Valdez, yeah. Moltrap,
that's Moltrap is a very long time ago. I'm pretty sure that indeed like Valdez and Wolf casted something on YouTube a while ago. Yeah, you're right.
StarLeague was on
SSL,
YouTube.
yeah.
You're right. SSL was on YouTube.
Yeah. Because that had like 1,200 viewers or something, or like 2K on like a good day. I recall that.
So maybe there's some other stuff going on that we're not aware of. Maybe YouTube just suddenly really likes StarCraft and they're like, we'll give these guys a little boost, we'll recommend it a bit. But whatever it is, it seems to be working, because we think it's obviously quite all right as well. I mean, there's not many esports who can say that they're not losing viewership if they're going from Twitch to YouTube. Like pretty much everyone, because you have to grow these kind of channels normally. But apparently people are already there. So I think that is indeed really cool and we're happy with it. Second to last question, guys. I know it's been a very long European Pylon show. But what kind of balancing... Oh, actually, Blackfaust is asking this question. What kind of balancing sport do you do to compensate the lack of movement while sitting the whole day? And how often do you do it during the week? The German term is Ausgleichssport, if I used wrong translation for this. Lambo, help us. What is an Ausgleichssport?
I mean, just something to compensate. He pretty much explained it in the question.
Okay, so he did a good job. All right. Kev, I'll start with you. I think you're the fittest of all of us. What do you do to compensate sitting all day?
I know. I usually run 3 times a week, and I work out 4 times a week. Like I alternate days usually. Actually, I used to do 2-1 before, so 2 days of working out, 1 day of running. But because all gyms are closed, I work out once, and then I run once, then I work out, and I run. That's it. I know.
So what do you do?
Who? You cut out for me.
Yeah.
Well, what do you do to compensate for playing video games that often? Do you exercise?
Yeah, I mean, I started working out like since last year, and I like to play basketball when the weather is good, pretty much.
Cool. Benjamin.
I don't know about compensating, Kevin. I like to see how far I can go. So I'm looking to see how far this body can really take me if I do absolutely nothing for like the next 10 years.
Funka.
Honestly, lockdown has been helping a little bit because I've always been a lazy ass, but I'm still like using public transportation, and I walk towards the subway station, stuff like that when everything is normal. So this isn't the case these days. So I try to do. We bought Ring Fit on a Switch, which is kind of decent, but it bored me for a little bit in the end. So I try to use a rope, rope in the building. I'm using it just outside. I can still go there. Like the lockdown allows us to still go there, so I try to jump the rope a little bit every 2 days.
Like a boxer preparing for a fight.
Yeah, I'd like to pick up boxing when this is over. I've never done it, but I would love to do it.
All right. Well, I can answer it as well. I didn't do anything for like 4 or 5 years, but then in January, I finally started going to the gym, and I was proud of myself. 5 days a week, nothing too crazy, but at least I was getting out there. I was running a bit. I was doing a little bit of lifting, and I was like, this is good. After not doing anything for all these years, I'm on the right track. Bam, global pandemic breaks out, and I'm sitting here eating Kinder Buenos and using my fry pan every night. So it's terrible. The universe wants me to be fat, and I'm okay with it. So we're moving on. Last question, guys, and then we are done with this the Pylon show. The last question is by Barbarossa, but then 4 instead of Ace. All right. Barbarossa is asking us, replacing the best Terran map in the pool for a 4-player map in GSL? I mean, I love it that GSL brings back own maps. I miss that so much. But seriously, can you elaborate? So I guess the best Terran map is Purity and Industry, and he's very upset it's been removed. Well, guys,
What 4-player map came back?
Obsidian.
Obsidian. The Sanctum map?
It looked
It looked a bit like Darkness Sanctuary, like basically a reskin from it, was what people said. I didn't look at it too much. It got vetoed, so. And it's also by the same map maker.
I don't know what it is, but I didn't really like Purity, honestly. I thought it was cool the first few times I played it, but having so much airspace and the slow zones and stuff was a bit annoying. I don't like 4-player maps. Like I don't like the whole scouting situation. Like scouting one way and you having no info, but your opponent scouting the correct way, getting all the info. That kind of shit is just horrible.
Yeah, people ask all the time why we hate 4-player maps, but it's just like for Zerg, the close spots usually on 4-player maps suck, and then the far away spot is good. So you're like, what should I do with this? It's based on RNG. And then also, I don't think, to come back to the original question, it matters too much, because we're going from one map that was always vetoed until the best of 7s to another map that's also always going to be vetoed. And I still think Zergs and Protoss don't like 4-player maps. So I think like it still doesn't really change that much.
Actually, in TVP, I think 4-player map is better for TOS than for Terran. Because Terran it's more important for Terran to kind of scout in the early game than it is for TOS. And TOS can be relatively safe with some openers. So I actually think that veto got switched, because usually TOS would veto Purity and Industry, but I think Obsidian would get vetoed by Terrans, right, Ben? Like 4-player maps is generally worse for Terran.
Yeah, I mean, you like to rely on the Reaper Scout, no SCV Scout, and then as soon as you have to kind of potentially change that up, and like adepts coming from random directions, I'm finding getting max packs on a 4-player map, like, yeah, it just wouldn't be pleasant. And can you imagine, like, if we played Whirlwind, that is one of the 4-player maps that comes to mind. Okay, like, where does Zerg send their overlords? I know they like to go from like either up or right or whatever, but just having Terran proxy raxes in the middle of the map kind of thing, like I don't know. 4-player maps just add so much randomness, honestly.
There's the one thing that people bring up a lot, which is whenever a 4-player map gets introduced or we talk about it, I see this a lot where it's like, like, isn't it good for diversity? Like, pro players only want standard maps. It's like, no, like, we're fine with having non-standard maps. Like, we actually don't complain too much about Golden Wall. Like, it's a completely non-standard map. Like, sure, it gets vetoed a bunch, but we actually see a lot of play on it, and it creates some pretty odd games. Purely in industry is completely non-standard. I don't like the map too much, but for different reason than it being non-standard, like Reaper rush distance being too short, having a really good tank position where you have to wall with your gateway. Like, this is the reason why I think this map is bad for TOS. But 4-player map is just bad diversity. It's like putting in a 12-player map. Like, it's just gonna suck. Like,
Yeah,
I don't hate diversity. I hate bad maps.
That's the
random.
big thing. Like, one player can have all the info, whereas the other player doesn't. It's like, if you're both on the same map, Golden Wall, we'll talk about, like, you're at least both in the same position. You'll both be like, but yeah, as soon as you bring in that other element of, and it is RNG, and it's not down to whether you're good or not. It's down to whether you got lucky. And StarCraft 2 players hate the freaking luck aspect, or at least most of them do.
I think you guys covered that really well. Like, I'm the same. I've always loved like 4-player maps as like a super casual player. I was like, you know what? I know this is not good for professional play, but I do like the diversity. But what has absolutely nothing to do with StarCraft is scouting in a certain direction, determining whether you win or lose a game. Like, that has nothing to do with StarCraft. That has nothing to do with liking a different map. Like, I shouldn't lose a game because I'm scouting the left top instead of the left bottom, and in the left bottom I was getting 12 put, and I'm not aware of it. Like, at that point, I feel like we're not even playing StarCraft anymore, and that's, of course, like, never a good thing, right? You don't want to see games decide or games end on that note. Well, guys, that was it for the Patreon Q&A, and that means that we are getting towards the end of the European edition of the Pylon Show, the 92nd episode. Of course, a very big thank you to all of our guests. We're going to get a couple of shout-outs in, and we'll give you guys an opportunity to say goodbye. Funka, you're up first. What are you going to do in the upcoming weeks, and where can we follow what you're doing? And hopefully you had a good time, and thank you.
Well, obviously, really great time. That was good to be with you guys, talk to you guys, see you guys a little bit. You know, it's been a long time with the lockdown and everything, so it's good. As far as what I'm doing these days, well, obviously I'm casting 4 or 5 times a week on OGaming SC2, where the passion is always there, and we're always casting really fast and really loud, even though we're casting from our homes. My girlfriend can't take it anymore. She wants to kill me every single day. So yeah, OGaming SC2. We hopefully will have some cool stuff to show you. Well, in a distant future, but we're still working really hard with StarCraft. You can follow me on Twitter, but it's been shown the entire broadcast. So if you guys want to know when I'm streaming, even though I'm not streaming that much StarCraft 2 these days, I'm all on the Valorant app train. You can follow me there, and yeah, really great to be there, and I'm happy to be a part of this amazing European episode of the Pylon Show. Way better than the NA one, if you ask me.
I wouldn't go that far, Funka, but thank you very much. Next up, Harstem, tell us, mate. I know you're getting excited, of course, for TSL 5, and we'll see you in that, but I'm sure we'll see you stream, upload some videos, talk to us.
Yeah, I stream most days of the week. I pretend to be live at 12 every day. Usually it's 10 minutes later or 20 minutes later or 2 hours later, like today. But that happens to the best. 12 to 5 usually on most days. And then I also upload YouTube videos daily on my youtube.com/Harstem. That's a lot more consistent than my streaming schedule, but I'm always there, Kev.
Always there, the cornerstone of European Protos. I love it. Thank you very much for joining us. Next up, a good friend, Benjamin Baker. Ben, I started the episode with it. I'm going to end the episode with it. Are you still into StarCraft 2, Ben?
I'm still into StarCraft 2, Kevin. And
Okay.
yeah, guys, life's going well for me, actually. I live out in the woods, so basically my normal life is quarantined life. I just joined Team Method. Got some nice clothes available. I've been doing really well since joining them. I'm streaming all the freaking time as well. For a while, Kevin made fun of me because he was like, Ben, you hardly freaking stream, mate. Now I'm pulling out hours, kind of similar to him, so I'm very, very happy. And yeah, you guys can check me out on twitch.tv/Demuslem. I actually took part in like a Warcraft 3 tournament recently as well, the equivalent of Stay at Home Story Cup. that Take ran for Warcraft 3. I ended up coming third overall, so I've been repping as StarCraft 2 boys really, really well. And yeah, I'm super duper happy.
Thank you very much, Ben, for joining us. And then, of course, we have Lambo as well. Lambo, you're also going to practice hard for TSL5, I assume. Tell us, where can we follow you? And hopefully you had a good time.
Yeah, of course. I had a great time. Thanks for having me, first of all. You guys can follow me on all my social medias at LamboSU2, Instagram, Twitter, of course. And I basically stream daily at twitch.tv/LamboKing. So if you want to check that out, also, I'm going to announce the Archon match once I have that scheduled on my Twitter. So if you are interested in that, make sure to follow that there.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lambo. And of course, last but not least, I was your one-time host, guys. We decided to give Artie Mactosis a week off, or a day off, a week off. It's technically in the week. He was so tired of winning all that money in poker, you know. Artosis is the only guy in history who streams an 1,100 euro poker tournament, or dollar it was, without delay, and then thinks it's a great idea to have a meme blocking his cards. But then sometimes he would remove the meme just to show his cards to the audience. And then everybody knows what he has for the rest of the hand, and he still won money. So Artosis is a legend. I don't know how he did it. It is fantastic. That man deserves. Like, he played poker with a handicap. That's really hard. How Dan won. But he did it, so he deserved the week off. I was your one-time host. Obviously, I stream a lot as well at twitch.tv/Rotterdam08. This was really fun for me. A little bit different. I think I prefer being a guest, but I tried to make it fun for you guys. And then last but not least, a massive thanks to, of course, everyone behind the scenes, because even though this looks like a simple online show, there are nerds who work very hard on making this look great for you guys. So a big thank you to the Pylon show crew who make this happen. And last but not least, a final shout out to all the Patreon supporters who support the Pylon show, Artosis, the rest of the team on Patreon. Without you guys, it wouldn't be possible to make such a fun and awesome StarCraft show. Hope you guys had a great time, and we'll see you next week.